Another day, another game. Welcome back, everyone, to the Swiss Esports channel. I'm Retro, joined by Raiden and Tudors. Hope you're all feeling great. Raiden, why don't you kick things off here?
Yeah, so let's start this off, right? So it's Uni Bern versus ETH Zurich. We have 10 pretty good players lined up. We'll just start off from the Uni Zurich side. The top name, the most well-known name in Swiss esports is going to be Ropsy, so pretty high-level player. I think around 2,700 EDO on Faceit. So you should definitely be looking out for him. So the second guy, maybe the second best player on the team, is going to be the AWP in Roman. He's probably the only primary AWPer that we have in both of the teams, so definitely watch out for him. Very flashy player. He's going to be pushing in everywhere, sort of holding angles, jumping in, no scopes, all sort of things. The support players, I would say, on Zurich side are going to be MK and Lidl. So watch out for their utility usage, their sort of role playing, sort of hanging back, trading, clutching, stuff like that. And the IGL on the Zurich side is going to be Mr. Skopolos. Yeah, it's tough to see much from the IGL, but just watch out also for support plays. So on the other side, for the Bern side, we're going to have probably the best player is going to be Mr. Krause, also a very high EDO player, around 2,500, 2,600. And the IGL, probably the second best player is going to be Hypnoxus. He's also going to be the AWP, I think, but he's not a primary AWPer, so that fight between him and Roman is going to be interesting to watch. And the third player is going to be Nimbledrop, also sort of role players, entry fragger. You're going to have to watch out for pretty good aim and how he's going to entry onto the sites. The more supportive players are going to be Lumori or Luminous and Rod, also just like sort of role players. You're not going to see too much of, like explosive aim, just like walking out onto sites, getting 3 entries from them, but more they're going to be the quieter players, just clutching out, stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, we have some
Oh,
technical
yeah.
difficulties, Raiden. You were talking about more or less the strategies heading into this one. The everything is good, everything is grand for both sides. You've painted the picture quite well. Looking at the individuals on papers, you mentioned there's some very high elo players. Is there anyone we should be looking out for in particular?
Yeah, I think you're going to want to watch out for Rapsi on the Zurich side, on the ETH side, because he's going to be the guy who's going to have to entry a lot, going to play aggressively. He's going to be the one that has to create a lot of space. And on the Burn side, you're going to watch out for Mr. Krause. He's also the high elo player. He's maybe not I wouldn't call him like an aim star or something, but more like a smart player who's going to watch out for gaps, especially if it comes to Inferno. You're going to have to watch out for him in the apps and like that short position, entering out of boiler, entering out of apps, stuff like that.
Okay, sounds good. So, obviously coming into this best of three, we don't know the veto. I feel like you're a lot more experienced than I am in terms of the in terms of the
Yeah,
individuals and the
of the
teams
maps
here.
also. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you expect coming out of this best of three heading into this one? Is there a map you think either team's going to go for? Do you think they have a very similar veto or?
Yeah, I think they actually will have pretty similar veto. I think the closest map is going to be Inferno, which I'm pretty sure all 10 of the players do play. So that's going to be the, like sort of the closest map. Overpass also, I think I would expect in this best of three. Train is also a map that they all play. So, those sorts of pug maps, sorts of Faceit maps are, you know, probably the most probable maps that we'll see. Vertigo, not so likely. Nuke also not so likely. So I would say you know, if I had to guess, I would say Inferno, Overpass, and Train, but maybe there would be a Mirage Stone in there somewhere.
Okay, I genuinely hope that my audio is now working. Apologies for that on our end, but it seems as if everything is now golden on my end for the very least. Now, obviously, within the culture of CSGO, Inferno has always been known as the decider map, the team where, or technically the map where good teams go to die on as well. And obviously, at the end of the day, this is an exhibition matchup. The stakes aren't exactly all that high, besides the fact that these two squads, they've got to keep their massive egos intact. That is technically the grand prize for both of these two squads.
Yeah.
But
also for the universities, right? So there's a rivalry there.
Of course, there's always a rivalry. Not necessarily the biggest of grudge matches, but technically they should still be quite the show for us over here. Inferno. Obviously, it is a map that everybody knows like the back of their hands, but do you think that it'll be brought out right off the bat the moment that we come out of the gate swing, or do you think that it'll be kept for last as a decider map should we potentially get there?
I think if there was a team that would pick Inferno, it would be the Zurich side of things, I think, because for the three, if not four of the players, it's really sort of their best maps, even like individually. So I think if somebody were to pick it, it would be Zurich. I think Bern is obviously going to be very comfortable on it, so they might leave it up for third. So yeah, I think it would go either way actually, but I'm not really sure who would who would pick it exactly. But it's definitely going to be one of the maps played. I can tell you that much.
Okay, it's interesting to hear sort of how the veto goes, and hopefully we'll have that information and be able to share that with you as soon as possible. But as for any predictions, between these two sides, do you see either university taking this one over the other, or is it going to be quite evenly matched?
I think it's actually going to be pretty evenly matched. I will say it's going to depend a lot on the form, right? So if one player is going to feel the game pretty well, I think Ropsy or Mr. Krause can 100% take away the game. Even Hypnoxus can take away the game. Or Roman, if you put him on the AWP on Overpass A side, he's just going to drop 20 frags on the CT side. So this is very possible. So it's sort of exciting in the sense that we don't really know what's going to happen. So it's going to depend a lot on the form of the players.
Great. But myself, as far as predictions are concerned, it's usually going to be extraordinarily difficult to call it. And usually the one rule that I always do toss on out, especially when I'm casting, looking, regardless as to what kind of sports or esports it may be, is that I want everything to go the full distance. I just love to milk the match for its maximum entertainment value. So that's essentially what I'm going to be saying. But judging from what I've heard thus far in the couple of minutes that you've been talking about these two squads, Raiden, I'm probably going to have to put my bottom dollar on the University of Zurich, just because of the fact that you sounded very, very confident in their overall abilities. So I'm probably going to say that this match is going to be relatively close, but it's going to be the University of Zurich that takes those two whole maps.
Yeah, I actually would agree with you. So if you had asked me about my prediction, I would also have said probably maybe 60 or 55% towards Zurich side. I think their team is just maybe slightly more well-rounded, Yeah. But it's definitely not, it's not like 90% towards the one side or the other.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm going to throw out my prediction. I'm going to join you on the Zurich side of things. So I'm going to say 2-0.
Okay, we're putting all our eggs in one basket, huh?
I'm loving the fact, I always love a three mapper, but I think in the last 9 best of threes I've predicted, I've not dropped a wrong one. So I'm holding. No, yeah, like 2-0, 2-1. Like I've predicted the exact score line to each best of 3. I'm putting it on the line. Bearing in mind, I know neither of these teams. I'm putting a lot of faith in your motivational speaking, Raiden, saying that Zurich have done well. But by the sounds of things, I mean, Bern, they're not exactly going to be a bad team coming into this one. It's not like a David and Goliath context by any means. It's more of a fact. Whoever is going to bring forward, I guess, the firepower and the willingness to this best of 3 more is going to be the one to take this home. I think it's just about enabling the players more than anything. And I'm sort of, I'm excited to see sort of where that one goes. And if the players you've mentioned are actually going to surprise us and show us what they're made of, or if there's going to be a player we don't particularly know all too well for their fragging ability to show up on top.
Yeah, I think I'm mostly excited for you guys, like after the first map, I think, to see what you guys think of the teams and the players, and then I think the second and third maps are going to be the really interesting ones, even from your side.
Yeah, I'm definitely ready for one to actually have my socks just completely blown off. Going into this particular matchup entirely blind is always usually just half of the experience, all things considered. And personally, well, despite the fact that we have all technically just hopped on the Zurich train, I've got a tingling sensation at the back of my head that may or may not convince me to swap my prediction over towards Uni Bern, but I'm just going to hold on tight for that for the time being. But if Uni Bern actually do pull out a massive stomp over Zurich, then not only does that technically mean that all 3 of us will be immediately shot down because our predictions were wrong, but unfortunately enough, Retro can no longer hold on to that flawless prediction record as well. So obviously,
all on the line.
Obviously, that's a bit too valuable that we don't necessarily want to throw away. So, Zurich, I know you guys are probably watching this before the videos come out and before you guys actually hop into the server as well. You know what's on the line for this one.
So really, you guys have not a lot to lose, and it's actually my cred that's on the line here because you've sort of piggybacked on my prediction.
Yeah, you know what?
So-
If it's wrong, I'm blaming Raiden. If my prediction
Yeah, exactly.
wrong,
It's really
all on
my
Raiden.
yeah. I'm the one that's gonna, come out looking extremely good or an absolute idiot. But let's see what's happening. What's gonna happen?
I'm pretty sure that also we will be running predictions as well in the Twitch channel itself. So if you've actually been saving up some channel points yourself and you think that you can give our predictions a run for their money, then make sure to go ahead and bet as many channel points to your heart's content. Unless you live in a region like the Benelux where the government said, hey, no channel point predictions, then go ahead and get yourself a VPN as well, because that stuff helps out immensely and you can join in on the fun. Obviously, just actually betting even the smallest of digital currencies, it does also put in a bit of sort of emotional contraction towards the matchup and makes things that much more spicy as well. So guys in Twitch chat, make sure to get that done the moment that the predictions are up.
All right, so we are going to come to the maps now. So Metashock is the one that's going to pick first. Metashock is on the Bern side of things. So the first ban was Dust 2, which I think that makes a lot of sense because we don't really have a lot of these aimers or people that are just going to walk out with one flash, get 3 entries. That makes a lot of sense. The second ban from Zurich side of things is Nuke, which also makes sense. Very tactical map. This is not really, it's not a 5-man team that's played together. So the sort of chemistry is going to be missed on Nuke. Makes sense. And the map pick is actually by Bern, which is Inferno, which I thought they would maybe not pick, but actually have gone ahead and picked it. And Train is the pick by. Oh, actually, I apologize. Inferno is actually Zurich's pick, which makes sense from my side, and Metashock's pick is actually Train, which also makes sense. These all actually pretty, I would say 7 to 8 of the players play Train pretty well. And also the AWP is going to be obviously quite strong on Train for T sides that are not, don't have a lot of executes and stuff like that. So we have to watch out for the AWP. And yeah, the Vertigo also has been banned, Overpass has been banned, and we have Mirage as the decider.
Yeah, I think something I was going to mention is the fact you were talking about the fact that we have a lot of AWPers on the server, a lot of capable players with the sniper rifle. And so heading into this best of 3, when you've got Inferno, Train, Mirage, I feel like all of them benefit around running possibly a double AWP on the CT, most certainly a single AWP. And the exact same thing on the T side, where we're going to see a lot of AWPing, a lot of window for opportunity with these AWPs. I think this is a real good time to showcase the great from the good. And this best of 3 will definitely enable the AWPers in that sense.
157%, surprisingly enough. As you said, a lot of these maps, or technically the 3 maps that we do have on our hands, it does give you that leeway. It actually sort of does warrant, at the very least, as you stated, a single AWP to be chosen. And depending on exactly how far away some of these bomb sites are actually split from each other, and depending on how comfortable you feel defending them with as few people as possible, then it could even potentially warrant that double AWP setup that we were talking about. Inferno, for example, prime example. The amount of avenues that you actually have to worry about on the CT side, they can be relatively minimal, but because of the fact that those 2 bomb sites are spread relatively thin and far away from each other, it does mean that, well, unfortunately enough, the poop can hit the fan really quickly, and when it does, it's going to be a storm to say the least, meaning that you need the tools and the resources to reinforce that CT side to the best of your abilities. So obviously, we did also touch, and specifically Raiden, you did touch on the fact that both of these 2 squads, they have got outstanding AWPers, technically players that shine the brightest, but obviously with this current map veto that we do have on our hands, it does also beg the question, who's going to step up to the plate to potentially be that secondary AWPer? Those are still, at the end of the day, some shoes that do need to be filled.
All right, so with those questions, I think are you guys ready for this? I think I'm
certainly
pretty excited to see this. Watch out for those AWPs, as we said. Watch out for those Haido players, Rapsi, Mr. Krause. Let's see what happens in this. Take it away, guys.
Yeah, thank you so very much, Raiden. And of course, as you mentioned, this is going to be exciting. This is an exciting one.
Yeah, it definitely is.
All right, guys. So I'll see you after the map. You guys, it's all yours, as they say. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers. We'll talk to you in just a hot second. But Retro, first time that we've actually interacted, met, and casting with each other as well. This is certainly going to be a really, really interesting matchup, all things considered. Now, obviously, I've got a bit of a different style, something that also the people in Twitch are going to have to get accustomed with. I primarily come from a background that just highlights Rainbow Six Siege and Valorant, and picking up CSGO as my tertiary esport does mean that to a certain extent, you're going to have to do a lot of the carrying tonight.
Oh, that's fine. That is fine. Counter-Strike born and bred is where I stand. I've had a couple of Valorant gigs in my time, but nothing like the old Counter-Strike terrorists and counter-terrorists and all that. So, Toodles, as we mentioned, our predictions firmly stand with the Zurich side.
Indeed they
you
do.
know, we stand on different map scorings. You know, you want to see the full three. I'm more on the absolute domination, the 2-0. But when I say domination, I think, you know, as a whole, 2-0 is impressive. You know, to get a 2-0 scoreline is impressive. But I feel like the maps are going to come down to the wire. I couldn't tell you which way they go. I mean, I'm going based on the information that Raiden gave us here, and so I'm firmly saying that it sounds like Zurich have a much better advantage heading into this one. But what's the most alarming factor I feel like for Zurich heading into this game is the fact that the games can be so tight. The maps could come down to the wire because of the tiny discrepancy between the two sides and their abilities.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, when you, for example, take a look at a scoreline, you see 2-0. That doesn't necessarily tell half the story more often than not. We don't necessarily know exactly how close the individual maps could have gotten. So even if we do only see 2 maps tonight and they do go the way of Zurich, then who's to say exactly how easy the road was for them. I can only imagine that the road in general to reach that 2-0 scoreline is going to be relatively bumpy, considering the stature and the firepowers that these two squads do actually bring to the table. So all in all, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised either if we were to see a quick and swift 2-0, but it may not seem that quick and swift as one would have once thought, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you know, when you go on like HLTV or any of those sites like that, and you just see the map score line. I think you've got to be very careful in the fact that you know, you've got to look into the game and you've got to realize, oh, this was a 16-12, this was I don't know, a 16-14 or something like that. So I think it's quite alarming to some extent. You know, you've got to be careful. Things can happen in the blink of an eye. I'm interested to see sort of where this one goes and how it directs all. Do you know, heading into the veto, we mentioned that it was Inferno our first map, and then of course it was Train our second map. Heading on to Inferno, it sounds like it's the most even of the three. I would have expected more to come as a decider, but the fact that Zurich have picked into this one, Two Doors, I think it tells me a lot about the fact that maybe they've been religiously practicing this one. Maybe they've been really trying to knuckle down on the map in general and just putting forward a really good, strong T approach to this map.
Honestly, map vetoes, they usually do speak volumes, and especially when we do actually see something like this, I tend to get a little bit skeptical. And the main reason why I do say that is because of the fact that when you take a look at a lot of other first-person esports shooters in general, you have sort of your outlier maps, which everybody should know like the back of their hand, and they do get played religiously. But when they are actually brought out very, very early in the matchup, it could usually mean one of either two things. A, that the team wants to gain the advantage as soon as humanly possible if they do feel that comfortable enough to do so. But on the opposite side of things, on the other hand, it can technically be something a tad bit more negative, meaning that your overall map pool may not be as broad, wide, and or deep as somebody once thought. So personally, the fact that we are seeing Inferno as that first pick coming out from Zurich, it really does raise an eyebrow, to say the very, very least. And personally, I was expecting something just a little bit more niche to be brought out by Zurich as that opening map, but for the time being, only time can tell. Once we actually hop into the server and see what these two squads are capable of, if Zurich have done a tad bit more preparation their opponents, if they do actually walk into Inferno with much more confidence than their opposition, then sure, they could walk away with it relatively easily and close things off on their opponent's map choice of Train. But for the time being, all we can really actually rely on is speculation, sadly enough.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like our predictions might change in the blink of an eye when we get in the server, Two Doors, and I think that's going to be quite an alarming one. To jump into this, you know, both of us don't really know all too much about these teams, and so it becomes quite apparent from the get-go. You can tell sort of the level that people are playing at, and how the approach is taken all in all. It's sort of how well you gauge these two teams and which one will come out on top. Now, I'm interested to see. Chat seems to be more towards the Zurich side of things, but there are a couple of Unibern fans in the chat. I wouldn't say it's split. I would say slightly in Zurich's favor, but it seems to be we've got fans from both parties heading into this one. Toodles, we're on the Zurich side. I think there's not much else to address in this best of three. I feel like everything is laid out. Inferno is our first map. I'm very excited to jump into this one.
Yeah, we've already got the foundation right on front of us, and we are just about to hop into the action as production has confirmed that we can actually start taking a look at what both sides, Gecko and Metashock, have to offer us this time around. Round number one, right here on Inferno, is, well, no longer over the horizon, but we can actually dig deep into some good old-fashioned CS right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, hit out, taking an early dink towards middle. Luckily, the Glock drop-off range gonna give him a fair bit of HP still to his name. 35 left in that initial engagement. Gecko got to be quite careful now as the approach towards B is imminent. Roman is gonna be in sight. Does drop on back, and now Metashock full force swing on forward towards this B site. Nice first shot, and then we'll drop to find the first. Scapelos looking for a trade. Unfortunately, nothing found. And now a 5 versus 4 Metashock storm towards this B site.
Indeed, they have. Give him an inch, they'll take the entire mile as Nibble. He starts to creep his way in towards Church, and he may have just had a bit of a scare, but he's hungry for even more frags. He finds 2. The triple on the round thus far is certainly going to put the CTs of Gecko in their spot, as they have been relegated to just one last standing player, and that's MK, who doesn't even stand a chance in the world. Shut down rather swiftly by Lamori, and that is Metashock taking a rather decisive round number 1 after brute forcing the way onto the B bomb site.
Beautifully done. I mean, that quad kill was sickening from Nibble Drop within that round, and we'll have a replay of this, of course. This first shot, I mean, interestingly enough, it was as easy as could be, and then this triple, you can't, or the double, excuse me, you can't get away with that. There needs to be a trade on that first player, and they could not find a thing. And that leaves them heavily disadvantaged. Gecko into the second round. They'll be bringing forward the pistols. And a very nice shot from Roman to kick us off. Gecko, 5 versus 4. There's a mag 7 on MK suffering as well on low HP. So if we're playing the HP war of things, the war of attrition, most certainly going in favor of Metashock. But being the man advantage, Gecko are going to have a lot of opportunities to take this second round and level things back out.
Yeah, they certainly do, but the one thing that I actually do want to hark at is the fact that they actually need to take this because they invested quite a chunk of money, quite a bit of their economy into buying into this round to try to tie up the scoreline evenly at 1-1. It's going to be Krause as well as Hypnoxus charging in deep towards CT to find one for himself, and that doesn't necessarily spell success for Gecko. What Skoplos is certainly going to do is darnest to keep things at an even playing field, but unfortunately enough, the man advantage now swings in the favor of Metashock as they are eagerly approaching the bomb site itself, and they haven't spotted out Skoplos. He finds one, recovers the rifle, but can't land the shots onto the second. Now it's all down to MK. He's got the mag 7 to work with and is on desperately low HP. He might not even have the opportunity to contest this.
The only way he'll win this is if he can take the 1 versus 1 with Nimble Drop without Lumori trading, and that is going to be a near impossible task. Time ticking away, and there you go, as easy as it could be. The Krieg whips out, and just like that, we find Metashock at 2-0. Gecko, they are going to be suffering here, and we'll have a replay, of course. Yeah. This shot from Scopelos, I mean, that is disgusting. Dirty. If he'd have found that second kill with a Krieg, that would have been round gone. Gecko would have found that round, no problems at all, but Metashock keep it well under control. And as we find ourselves into the third round, an eco enforced for Gecko, as they're going to try and bring forward the best out of these pistols.
Definitely. So as you can see, they are actually all currently stacked up over towards the A bomb site. A bit of a gamble that can actually backfire, especially right over here on Inferno, because of the fact that rotating back towards that B bomb site takes a bit longer than you'd initially anticipate. And the moment that Metashock can actually confirm live intel that they can just work their way into the B bomb site, then it may as well be a done and dusted story. But Roman's going to start things off. He's going to catch Hypnoxus with his pants around his ankles, and just like that, Gecko, they might stand a fighting chance in this round, but not for long, sadly. Yeah,
they need to be careful. An AK in the hands of Rapsy, and the corner not checked. That is a poor mistake there from Cruzy, and that is going to be a 5 versus 3 and 2 guns retrieve for Gecko. It becomes quite scary now. The fact that they have these 2 guns, the fact that every opportunity is going to be granted to the Gecko side, they've got to be careful. They've got to be very, very careful. There is going to be USPs rattling on off towards CT. Pressure is applied. Meta Shock slowly creeping on out. Scopelos, oh, he's underneath. He did hear the step of Nimble drop, but he hasn't caught him on the cross. He will find him up. Oh, Nimble drop at first. And you best believe he finds a second. 2 headshots there. And just like that, we're all tied up. But still 2 rifles within the picture. But they're reduced down to just 2. Nimble drop not stopping there. It's a quad kill within a round. Looking for the ace. MK approaching towards CT. And you best believe he's got all 5. Nimble drop is a genius.
Indeed, he is. When he's got an AK in his hands, there is nothing on God's green earth that can keep him from causing that much chaos. For a hot second right there, Retro, I genuinely thought that Gecko could have had this round in the bag. They had a man advantage of exactly 2 people on their side, which, you know, it does boost their overall odds of winning that round exponentially. And the fact of the matter is that they were able to, well, salvage 2 rifles all to themselves. You would have thought that they had a fighting chance, but it sadly wasn't in the cards for them. But luckily enough, around the corners, round number 4, we have already just picked it up, and now Gecko, they have the opportunity to buy Hypnoxus, unfortunately enough. He actually finds one of the oppers, that's Rapsy, now down in the dirt, but he's going to get traded out almost instantaneously. A little bit of a scuffle right over here by Banana, but all things considered, not too much harm, so not really a foul.
Yeah, exactly. A 4 versus 4. It benefits the T side. That's the most alarming factor, is that Gecko, having invested everything into this round, they've got to at least try and apply some pressure somewhere, or try and relieve it by finding themselves in a 4 versus 3. And this might be the play. The double stack inbound. MK good for 1, good for 2. If he finds the 3rd, it's round gone. But no, Nimble drop to still toss it in the air. Roman finds Lumori, though, towards this B site. And now, a 1 versus 2 required from the main man himself. A man with such firepower and grace within this game so far. But he's got to do a near unthinkable round ahead of him. He has made his way towards CT. There's going to be a player hot on his heels. Oh my god, they move right on past each other. This is big. If he can find this kill and find the flank, it's round gone. But no, it's all about timing. Scopelos, he's nowhere to be seen. And then Nimble moves his way around back towards Library. All about timing. He is going to be caught out now. Got to be careful. He knows this player has the AWP. Drops the smoke on down. Is going to try and apply the pressure on through. Eats the nade. But still alive within the picture. First kill found. Isolates the 1 versus 1. 10 seconds remaining. He's going to pump in the digits. Get the bomb down. Set it in place. And now the retake required. Scopelos, 1 versus 1.
Oh. And now it's 1 versus none. Just like that, despite Nimble's best efforts, he unfortunately enough could not thread the needle. And I gotta tell you, Retro, throughout that entire round, or at the very least the latter half of it, during the dying seconds of the round, I was basically on the tip of my toes. The fact that 2 players, both Nimble as well as one of the CTs, were basically just playing Ring Around the Rosie inside a CT, it was nail-bitingly intense and aggravating to a certain extent as well. But more importantly so, that is a first round on the board for Gecko, and if they weren't able to have bagged that one for themselves, then they could have been in dire straits. Obviously, the University of Zurich, Metashock, excuse me, they could have actually started to rack up even more rounds, build up an even meaner win streak all to themselves. So the fact that Gecko have been able to put an end to that kind of momentum, at least to a certain extent, does mean that we'll have a much more even match between these 2 squads.
Absolutely. Gecko double stack towards apartments. Will they check this angle though? Yes, they will. Cruzy with 1. Ooh. MK good for 2. However, Nimble drop back and forth. We'll find the trade. It's a 3 versus 3. Everyone full HP between the 2 sides, but I don't account for the ult towards long. Nimble drop to get on down. We'll be looking for the shot towards the long side. Moto smoke though. It knocks us. Very nice shot. Dips away as well, but there's a chance to trade. But Gecko don't take it. There's no initial swing off the initial contact towards long. And that's bought themselves a 2 versus 2. But Roman has found the shot. And down to Hypnoxus 1 versus 2. 2 kills within the round as he finds the first. But traded out. And Rapsy to secure himself a first kill on the board and a second round for Gecko.
We're only 5 rounds in, and those last 2 rounds have gotten far too close for comfort on the side of Gecko. I mean, don't get me wrong, being on the CT side means that you will naturally have to save up more money and invest more into your rounds in general, and almost each and every single one of these last 2 rounds that we have seen came down to pretty much 1v1 scenarios. The economic damage that Metashock is doing to Gecko is something that we simply cannot shrug away for the time being. And you can see that Gecko, they are basically relegated to playing with FAMASs as well as MP9s, and now they just have to battle this entire B-side execution head on. Trade comes on out. It's not going to benefit anybody except for Metashock, because they now hold on to the B-bomb side with an iron grasp, and it's down to Rapsy, the first point of contact. Shuts down Lamori through the smoke, but can't line up the second. He'll instead take a boatload of damage, but he has to continue to power on through. It's a 4v3 retake. Definitely doable for the side of Gecko, as the flashes have started to rain on through, but they can't act upon them. That's the issue right over here. And now Hypnoxis, blind as a bat, can't find the first. He will suffer a loss, and just like that, it's down to a 2v1 scenario. It's all down to Krause to hold on for dear life, but he can't, and neither can Gecko. I believe they have enough time as well as a kit to work with. So that's their 3rd round, tying up the scoreline in a neat little bow.
Absolutely. All tied up at 3 apiece. Gecko looking strong now as they bought back into the last couple of rounds. Even after the major casualties, as you mentioned, they still managed to weave their way on through and then deliver once more. We are all tied up at 3 apiece, as you mentioned. And this is now where it becomes interesting. Metashock, a do or die buy, I like to call it, where every single dollar is invested. The same for Gecko, may I add. Scopelos, the only man really with money in his pockets, and that just isn't quite good enough. Huge molly damage. Oh my word, what has just happened towards Banana? They're all standing in the mollies. A quick double for Rapsy, and just like that, Gecko, there should be no way they lose that round off the back of the double.
No, obviously you can't. The moment that you've already basically burnt Row up to a crisp and you're able to clean up 2 people just as easy as somebody on janitor duty means that you exponentially boost your odds of winning the round. That's exactly what Gecko have been able to accomplish thus far, and keep in mind that this particular round right here was technically the last complete buy round that Metashock could have afforded, at least for the foreseeable future. So obviously now this does beg the question, what are Metashock going to do? Are they going to commit? Because they can't necessarily throw away these rifles, but obviously having 3 people on your side that can't necessarily put up a fight doesn't spell success either. So I believe that they are going to try to gather some live intel, potentially work their way towards the B-bomb site, and well, see what's what.
Yeah, they need to get a firm grasp on this information towards Banana, because if you look at the map, they have no A control, and in turn, they've given up the majority of their B presence as well. They have to send towards Banana. Bomb's going to be picked up, heading its way on forward. Cruzy knows he's got to wait for a little bit of utility. There's a smoke in towards CT. There's going to be a flashbang sent high. Scopelos to duck underneath it. The second one unsuccessful. No one checks side. There is no smoke. Kroos doesn't check it. Hypnoxis doesn't either. Lumori 1 versus 5. And Rapsy, a quad kill. Yet again, a multi-kill on one of these players to send them closer and closer to victory. They are now ahead. It is 4-3. It's still early doors of this best of 3. But it's all the more alarming now that Gecko, they piece together a buy-round victory. And it becomes a little more interesting now as Metashock reduced to just pistols.
Yeah, obviously now Metashock, they're hoping to take a page out of the book of Gecko. What they were able to accomplish not even 3 rounds ago during their Deagle save, eco buy, whatever you want to call it, was absolutely astounding. But the fact of the matter is that Gecko have thus far been able to put down 4 rounds unanswered. 4 rounds in a row. And Metashock haven't been able to actually concoct any kind of response for the time being. This is the best and perfect opportunity for Gecko to start running away with this first half on the CT side. They want to build up a lead as soon as possible, differentiate themselves away from Metashock as soon as humanly possible. And that's exactly what they're going to start doing. Hiddle finds a nice little 2-piece with that FAMAS, and he's hungry for more, but he's not going to eat up Row. Unfortunately enough, he'll just eat a bullet to the head, and that means that Gecko still hold on to the man advantage, but that could soon change.
Oh, Hypnoxis so smart to push the smoke there. MK quick trade drops towards the pit, knows that they're in, but they aren't going to check the angle, and another kill should be found. 1 versus 3, all on the Desert Eagle of Rod, and he'll be tapped down quite easily. Rapsy to find the last, and Gecko now ahead by 2. An astounding round, but it was I mean, to be fair, expected. The fact that they were on the pistols, Metashock didn't really have a chance within that one, and an easy round picked up for the Gecko side as they find themselves now 2 rounds ahead, but a buy from both sides is where it becomes interesting.
Indeed it does. Metashock have been technically building up quite the loss bonus for themselves over the last couple of rounds, which, you know, I mean, it's a bit iffy when you have to actually force yourself to build up that kind of loss bonus, but it does mean that you can actually bring the tools and the resources to play this time around. However, Hypnoxis is the first to fall. The opening culprit being Roman right over there, the mean opper that Raiden was talking about. He's not unfortunately good for the second this time around, but he's going to start feeling the heat soon enough as Metashock have decided to dial things up to 11. They are perched up directly outside of short and long, and this is going to be an explosive round right here. Roman kicks us off once again. He finds the 2-piece. They don't necessarily line up, but it doesn't even matter. He's already taken away 3 lives with that AWP, and Gecko, or excuse me, MK right there with the FAMAS once again, just milking every single cent out of that assault rifle, closes things off with a nice little 2-piece.
Gecko now at 6. It becomes problematic for the Metashock side after an impressive start. They can't quite get a grip on these buy rounds, and this is a very wonky buy, I feel like. They bring forward a full investment, they get these AKs, they get everything they can in terms of riflery, but look at the utility to back it up. There's no real room to execute. Wherever they're going to throw their utility is the way they have to go, unless if they want to shift into the abyss. And we're quite literally looking at an easy 7th here for Gecko. Metashock need to be careful with the limited utility that they have. And considering they're already playing a default, I feel like this is going to give up all too much. This deep smoke as well. I mean, the utility isn't exactly wearing thin for Metashock right now, but it's a primary concern that they need to take care of quite quickly. And the only way you can do that is by using it all at one go and just trying to absolutely slaughter your way out into a site.
Obviously, you have to brute force your way, but once your mind is made up, that is about it. You have to commit, and the worst part for Metashock is at the moment that you actually pull the rings out of those grenades and you have them prepped and ready to be tossed on out, Gecko are going to toss theirs out in response to a certain effect or to a certain degree that nullifies the utility already exhausted on the side of Metashock, so they've only got one shot at this, to put it really bluntly.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And this is their only opportunity. With 4 men towards middle, the bomb's still in T-spawn. This is the paining factor. Roman's going to hear all of this. MK is going to gather the same information. They run and then they shift. This is not going to be good. MK good for 1. Roman finds 1 as well. Rod to ball. Humori, nice shot onto MK to get the trade. But the AWP of Roman is all too strong. He'd out to find 1 more. And Lumori against 4. There is no time. Bombs dropped out of nowhere. And Gecko find 7. Unbelievable plays there from Gecko. But Metashock, I mean, you've got to think about this round. And as critical as it sounds, you make noise to run towards long. You run straight into long. And then you hold the shift key. You have a smoke in library. And then you get surprised when the team expects you to run towards arch. It's simple CS. And they're failing at the basics right now. And Gecko capitalizing off of every mistake possible.
Definitely so, and at that certain point, when you're making those kinds of mistakes, it would be a crime for Gecko not to actually punish them, and rightfully so as well. 10 rounds in, 5 more to go in this opening half, and Metashock are once again forced onto, well, not the best of buys, so to speak. They can only pick up a couple of Tech 9s as well as a couple of Deagles, but hopefully they'll be able to put their laurels to rest sometime soon and actually recover from their previous mistakes. This time around, utility is being used out a tad bit more properly, but gunfights are something that they might not exactly excel in, but I'm gonna have to eat my own words right over there, Retro, because so far they're making do. Gecko have been reduced to 3 players, man advantage sits with Metashock, bomb has gone down, clock has been reset to 45 seconds, and we might have a round on our hands.
And right away, Rapsy good for 1, Rapsy good for 2. You said that they had a chance, and boy did they have it. But Rapsy tearing every possible chance and every odd away from them as Roman finds another. It's Nimble drop, last man standing, and Gecko overpower, Rapsy to deny. And at 11 rounds in, we find ourselves 8-3 up. Gecko to secure success at halftime. A convincing start and a convincing end to round 11.
Indeed, it really, really was. Rapsy right there. He was the primary difference maker. Now, I don't know about you, Retro. I'm just a lowly, filthy little DMG myself, and I have no idea how somebody's able to control that M4A4 recoil as masterfully as he did, because lining up the spray, that secondary kill onto the person inside a pit, basically blew open that powder keg of a round, and that actually gave Gecko a winning shot, all things considered. But now, on the opposite side of the spectrum, Metashock, well, they can actually afford a sniper rifle as well as a couple of AKs, meaning that this is the perfect opportunity for them once again to bounce back. And if they are able to once again build up a win streak, they can potentially sit at an 8-7 score line come halftime. And they're going to start brute forcing their way once again to the bomb site, but Mollies will be tossed in response. Cruci, now isolated, will have to force his way back in towards mid. The call has come through, and Metashock, they're committing to this B-side execution.
That is poor from Rapsy. He swings wide to throw the fire, or the smoke, excuse me. Is now on Scopelos. Back of the site, has found one. Drops in towards CT. The AWP to reallocate as well. Hypnoxus expecting the push, but not right now. Molotov in towards new box. Scopelos looking for a peek, an advantage. Oh my, that's a very nice tap. Doesn't find the kill, but it's damage done. An important factor in this 4 versus 4. Grenade goes deep but unsuccessful, and Gecko's retake now has to be strong. But what we've seen in the past will be no scare, as Nimel, good for the first, low HP, swings wide, nice trade. Roman finds the shot, the peek on out. Cruci back at the site. Cruci's back at the site. It's now down 1 versus 2. MK finds the first. Here's the AWP shot connect. He jumps. Does he have the time? The pressure's inbound, and it knocks us with the shot. Metashock find 4, and Gecko set back in rounds, but the money's still flowing at the masses as they'll find a full investment in that one. But get a load of this one. Scott Pelos' best efforts, and his second little tag through the smoke was sickening, but even then, Gecko could not find a way back onto the site, and MK holds his call, giving them one step closer to victory.
Don't get me wrong, that was a scuffle and a half between these two squads. Right over there on that B bomb site, so much chaos started to ensue, and there were heroic plays on both sides, but ultimately it was a Metashock to put an end to the bad spells that they have been experiencing, and now, well, that does work in their favor as a bit of a confidence boost, and the fact that they have been able to take Scopelos out of commission means that they do actually stand a much more realistic shot at finding their 5th round right here, and they are committed to potentially pushing towards this A bomb site. As you can see, Gecko, they are setting up once again in case if the B execution comes to bite them in the back of the bum. But Metashock, they don't even bat an eye towards that opposite bomb site. They are fully committed to this portion of the map right here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is devastating for Gecko. I mean, Metashock playing with time right now. I saw that they pulled the executes way too quickly in the last, but now it seems to be they've really calmed down and taken this approach very, very well. As you can see across the board, they're slowly making their way towards B. They don't want to give up all too much of that information.
What's this?
But
Gecko's
rotates
rotating
coming
off
in.
of B?
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be good,
Uh-oh.
but as soon as Utilities heard, he's going to pull right on back, or at least he should. MK ready, however. They are in towards the boost once more. Will they even expect this? No, they will not. MK good for one. Somehow they don't expect it again. It's quite literally the 3rd time in a row. But Gecko soon to capitalize. The push on forward. Ramsey tries to catch him by surprise. Hypnoxus finds one towards Banana. And now it's Hiddle against 4. He has no choice but to save, and Metashock find 5.
That was so unfortunate for Rapsy over there. I thought for a hot second that he would have made the call, at least requested a flash to just be lobbed on out towards the B bomb site so he could actually push safely through that smoke. But he just pushed in completely blind, and he was caught off guard, cleaned up relatively quickly. But I've got to say that Metashock, they couldn't have gotten any more lucky with the actual timing. The fact that they were able to quite literally hit the bomb site as one of the CTs was rotating to reinforce the A bomb site was absolutely miraculous, whether they actually realized it or not. It meant that they had one less player to deal with, one less headache to worry about, making their execution onto the B bomb site so much smoother.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, now Gecko force onto the pistols. Metashock's chance to find 6. And 8-7.5 would be respectable, but it has to start now. Scopelos goes for the mid peak. The aggression capitalized upon. The remaining 4 players in towards this B stack, and it's going to be unfortunate as Metashock looks straight towards A. But they have resumed the default though, and so there is a slight chance that they'll head back towards this B site. It's very, very slight, however.
The fact that you stated last round that Metashock have been able to actually, well, sort of, to a certain extent, take their foot off the gas pedal and actually play some of these rounds a tad bit more conservatively. You're waiting for the right moment to pounce, and I can only assume that that's what's happening this round once again. Sooner or later, they're going to realize that the A bomb site is completely vacated. There's not a soul in sight whatsoever, and as you can see, they are just shifting their way all the way towards that A bomb site, and Gecko, unfortunately enough, there is no realistic manner for them to directly contest this whatsoever. Nobody's even there to feed the rest of Gecko some information whatsoever. So the fact that Metashock were diligent enough to slow down the tempo, not necessarily dictate it, but just slow down their own tempo and realize exactly what's going on Inferno, get that diffuser down or the bomb down the moment that a bomb site is indeed free, has really paid massive dividends for them in the long term.
Absolutely. And now, well, you know, they're going to try and charge on forward and do the best they can with the pistols that they have, but this isn't a great scenario to be in. The pistols push on forward, first kill found, second not found, however. Rapsy, nice shot, Hypnoxus, very nice gallery with the Tech 9 there, but nice 1D once more. Rapsy against 3. He's got the AK, he's running away, and he's saving, but he's way too close right now. He needs to dip away. He will do so just out of the blast radius. Metashock finds 6, but an AK in the wrong hands for the final round of the first half. Convincing it could be for Gecko, and a 9-6 would not be inappropriate to find at least a victory in map 1.
Definitely so. Metashock, they've basically solidified their stance in this here, round number 15 on the side of Gecko. It is looking a bit sketchier, but because of the fact that they were able to salvage 1 assault rifle, it could potentially be the difference maker right over here that bags them their 9th round. And I've got to say that I was surprised at the fact that Metashock actually lost that many players when the push started to come in through mid. I thought that Gecko were simply going to feed themselves into the meat grinder, but they actually gave Metashock a run for their money, and they're certainly looking to do the same right here in this last round of the first half. Flash is
nice. Good. Wow. Beautiful teamwork there from Gecko to bind themselves the man advantage. And, I mean, this is important, this round. This is very important for Gecko. If they can find this, they're on the right foot heading onto the T side. They find the pistol as well. They're in such good standings. Utility out towards B. Execute inbound. And now, well, the chance to try and slam within the last. Utility on forward. This is their chance.
Indeed it is. I believe that is going to be Rod. He's going to be leading the charge, the tip of the spear, and unfortunately enough for Rapsy, he can't land the headshots. It's Krause to start things off. We're back at an even playing field, but the bomb is starting to go down. The player over by Coffin has indeed been dealt with. That is Roman, who can no longer aid his team, but Skopolos, he's the unknown factor. He can make the impact that is needed. He finds the first, but he'll be shut down as the wide swing comes on through, and just like that, we have Metashock closing things off. 7 to 8.
That was sick. That was sick. Lumori's reactions there is absolutely unreal. At halftime, we find ourselves quite literally tied up at 8-7. The game could not be closer to doors. Heading into this second half, it has to be more of the same. It has to be that fiery impact we saw there from Metashock towards the second half on this CT side. Their hunger was at the max. And for Gecko, well, they slipped a lot of rounds later on. That's going to be key. If they can't turn around that sort of motivation and find themselves back in the second half and back into the game, they could find themselves an early exit in this best of 3.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the cold hard truth that we do have to deal with, but I've got to say that this matchup has been leaps and bounds better than what I had anticipated so far. It has been tit for tat, blow for blow, chunks of rounds being won back to back, and so many moments of heroism between these two squads. And I really got a feel for, who was it, I believe, the player that was sat over by Quad inside of the B bomb site next. I'm blanking on the name, unfortunately enough, but they could have potentially been the difference maker. I'm pretty sure that was MK holding onto an M4A1.
It was Skopelos on the back of the site.
It was Skopelos. Yeah, you're indeed right. Man, I was really crossing my fingers that he could have gotten more than just the one, but alas, it is the deal for the time being. Now Gecko on the T side, not wasting a single precious moment whatsoever. They're able to shut down Nimble. When basically rapid success, they'll find an extra kill. That is the player over by Coffin, but Krause is still here to reinforce the retake, but he's got to wait for Noxus as well as Rod to join in on the fun. One player creeping his way in through Banana. That is Hypnoxus shuts down the presence over by Banana. Now he's looking to contest. He finds the head of Hiddle as well, but unfortunately enough, he's all left on his lonesome. He has 2 heads to find, and luckily enough, HP is still on his side, but that may soon change, and time is starting to run away. He needs to try to pick up the pace, but unfortunately enough, he'll walk right into the open arms of Roman. That is Gecko finding the pistol round, which, as you said before the halftime did come around, that it could be the most important pistol rounds of their careers. Maybe a bit of an over-exaggeration, but it is an important pistol round nevertheless.
Yeah, I think it's quite important to see that Gecko find that round to get back onto the this scenario where they're back on their winning ways is a very important landmark, I feel like, to their success.
Yep.
I think they've got to be a little cautious though heading into this one. They've got to keep their chins up, their hopes high. It's just a matter of timing. Metashock need to find their way on forward. They need to find themselves a response, because if Gecko can start spiraling this game out of hand, then we're going to be looking at a very serious scenario. Flashbang over the top. Scott Pelos quick with the peek. Does find the first. And a second found nearly, but the dink is good enough. Hiddle quick trade. Hiddle doubles down. Gecko easy access to the speed bomb site, and we'll find ourselves now at 10 as Metashock shut out and blasted once more.
As much as I love the MP9, unfortunately enough, while it was in the hands of Nimble, he wasn't able to put the pocket A10 Warthog to good use. It did not necessarily bag him the kill against the MAC-10 that came charging towards him. But more importantly enough, that is Gecko. Basically just throwing caution to the wind, all things considered. You can see that they are relentless. They are on the hunt. And sooner or later, they're going to pick up Rod's scent as well. And he's not long for this world either. His days, they're surely numbered. But more importantly so, the one thing that I do actually want to pick up on is that a couple of players on the side of Metashock, they actually did invest into that previous round. If I'm not mistaken, Hypnoxus was the only exception. So now, having to eco 2 times in a row, that could spell disaster for Metashock. It may take them a couple of rounds before they can swing back in and get themselves back on the horse.
Yeah, they've got to be very careful. Very, very careful at that as we jump into round 18. Metashock bringing forward a lot of pistols. Gecko needs to be careful. It's a quad boost in towards the cubby corner.
Okay.
And this could be quite big. I mean, if the nade's thrown in that corner, we'll be saying goodbye to 4 players quite quickly. But if no one checks this angle, it's 2 different extremes. We could find ourselves very much in a 10-8 scenario. We'll have to wait and see. Nimble drop, though, going to be attacked just a little bit by these mollies. Continuing on from that, they are going to throw some utility. This is big. They're trying to throw a B fake, but the Metashock side don't even fall for it. They do spot Nimble drop there, a grenade over the top, but here we go, straight out towards A. And if they push in toward long, this could be bad, but they don't even check because it's smoked off, and instead they funnel back around towards site.
Okay, and that is Nimble finding the opening kill on the opposite side of the spectrum, but there is so much action, actually. I wouldn't even dare call it action anymore. It's simply a massacre on the side of Metashock, with the last 4 remaining players just being swatted down like flies, unfortunately enough. And I've got to say that at the back of my mind, when I saw that Gecko were actually calling the rotate, they decided to completely, dismiss the B bomb site as an option and rotate over towards the A bomb site. I thought to myself, like, there is no way that you can fall for the trap that Metashock had set up, and they did, but they were able to get away with it because of the fact that they smoked it off perfectly. But the past is the past. Let's see exactly what Metashock can do right here, because this is a buy round coming out from them.
Yeah, again, a do or die situation for Metashock as they bring forward everything they can into this one. They've got to be a little cautious on this approach, but if they can find themselves the man advantage, find themselves a little bit of success, they're going to be looking really, really good within this series. And may I remind you, this is Metashock's map pick. If Gecko can find this map, they're in such a good position heading onto Train, I do believe. And so it's an important scenario. And smoke on down. Roman, low HP, does get away just behind the molly, tucks in through the smoke. And a 5 versus 5, but HP heavily in the favor of the Metashock side, but utility wearing thin for them could cause a problem as 50 seconds to go.
Flash is perfect. Nimmel's good for one, but he's going to be traded out once again. Luckily enough for him, Hypnoxus was right there to back him up as well. But now, Gecko, I believe that they have actually turned their attention towards this A bomb site, and time is starting to run short. They've got to commit, and it looks like it's going to be this A bomb site right over here. They have yet to spot out the player inside a pit, and here comes... Well, here comes Skopolos. Not necessarily the story that we once saw in Star Wars. He did have the high ground, and just like Obi-Wan, he was able to win that gunfight. Now it's all down to Rapsy. He's able to get down the bomb, although he's left on very little HP. A single shot from either the sniper rifle or the M4 is going to send him to a 6-inch grave, or a 6-foot grave, and that's exactly what does happen. He'll be laid to rest. Then Metashock, they were able to quickly respond to the execution as it started to be put in motion. Essentially, finally answering to those 3 rounds that Gecko were able to consecutively win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, very well played there for the push towards Banana, as easy as could be. And, oh, Skopelos, 1 HP, domed. And, I mean, Cruci did such a good job there in manipulating the play and finding that 2k. It was detrimental to the round success. And Metashock finding 1 step closer to tying things up. But a buy round yet again from Gecko being brought forward. But Hypnoxus, a lovely first shot, finding Metashock the man advantage and the AWPer out of the round.
That's unfortunate for Gecko. Somebody might have to recover that AWP and actually put it to use themselves, but I'm not exactly sure if that's an option they're willing to work with. Nade's good. It's going to clean up Lamori as well, but the refrag, it's almost instantaneous as Hiddle is going to be put to rest. That leaves Gecko in a 3v4 scenario, and they do maintain the HP disadvantage, all things considered, but things are starting to look relatively dicey as they have turned their attention towards the short side, only to actually be met by Krause, who does eventually get traded on out, but that's only half the story. They still have Rod to worry about tucked deep inside of Pit, and they don't have the jump on him. No, actually, they do. MK is able to shut him down, and that means they have the opportunity to get that bomb down.
Yeah, very well played. 2 versus 2 now. Gecko going to try and bring forward as much as they can and just hold on to this site. But at the same time, you've got to think about, you know, well, what is the retake protocol for Metashock here? They know that both players are low HP. They've just got to find the first kill. Rapsy's going to hear all this information, all this noise. MK going to suck it up. No, he now can deliver. Oh. If Rapsy finds 1, this round is surely gone. And let's see if Hypnoxus can pull off the unthinkable. First kill found, checks in towards mini pit, doesn't expect the long play. And MK denies him of life. 12 to Gecko's name. And it is strong for the boys in yellow as they find themselves 4 away from victory on Metashock's map pick.
And the thing about that round that was so miraculous to see is that Gecko, they actually suffered the opening casualty. They lost Romain, their main AWPer, so to speak, and they basically had to fight an uphill battle the moment that that initial entry had indeed gone down. But more importantly for Metashock is the fact that that was their buy round. And once again, the gap that was once 3 rounds for them to close has now expanded to 4, and meaning that if they don't pull off a miracle, if the stars don't align, that they will unfortunately be on the back foot. But they're able to clean up 2 kills nice and easy and also recover an AK in the process. But it's going to be stripped away from them once again as Rapsy is quick to respond.
Yeah, very well played. And now, well, it's an interesting one in every regard. Gecko needs to move on forward in a 3 versus 3, but it's 2 guns dropped that they've got to be careful of. Lumori in towards Spawn could be the difference maker if he can find a kill. And if he does and pick up a gun, I mean, this is round for certain gone. But he gets absolutely domed. Roman dishing out haircuts towards New Box as he'll quickly deny 1 of life. And now, well, 2 more to go. And that should be no problem for him. It's unarmored pistol opponents. And this is for sure a 13th to Gecko's name. A beautiful display of Counter-Strike within that round, but against the Eco, not too impressive. But the matter still applies that they're only 3 away from victory.
They are, and there goes Metashock. Bye-bye. Krause is the next to fall, and just like that, Gecko just 3 rounds away from taking their opponent's map pick, which is quite the feat, and that also does beg the question, how exactly is the next map train going to play out? Are both of these 2 squads going to win each other's map picks? I don't know. We'll only have to wait and see, but thus far, that particular eco round, it got off to an absolutely brilliant start on the side of Metashock. They were able to shut down 2 of Gecko's players, basically in record time, but unfortunately enough, they couldn't follow it through with anything of substance, unfortunately enough. Here's Hypnoxus, peeking in towards middle. He's good for one onto Roman. Once again, shutting down his doppelganger, Gecko's Opera as well, meaning that Meta Shock, they're setting themselves up for success. But, once again, they need to thread the needle. They need this 9th round.
Absolutely. It's a do or die situation for Metashock. If they lose this round, they're back on an eco, and that puts Gecko at 15. It's a concerning approach. They have to be cautious for it. Well, now, time ticking away, and there are 5 versus 4 granted. Metashock just have to wait the time. They don't have to press. They don't have to press on forward in any regard. It's just as easy as could be for them within this one. MK setting up ready to go. He is just looking towards the wall, playing the anti-flash in case Metashock wanted to try and do anything dicey, but no. They'll patiently wait. Patiently playing for the time, the space. Flashbang, Nimble drop, tucked into the corner. Needs to be careful. He can be caught out. Lumori pulls out his pistol at the wrong time. Will find one, however. A second kill required, at least for success, but no. It's Hidal that finds it. And a 3 versus 3 post-plant is not quite possible for Metashock. They need to find the first, and that's exactly what happens. And now the retake can happen.
Indeed it can. This has slipped into the realm of possibility for Metashock, and they're starting to slowly ingress towards these last 2 players who are basically within hugging distance of each other, but it's MK and Heidel. Oh no! The grenade lobbed out from afar, straight out of left field. That's Hypnoxus, and well, it was the perfect opportunity. Those last 2 Ts were on such little HP to the point that, yeah, a single shot or a couple of fragmentation particles surely cleaned them up, and that's exactly what Hypnoxus needed. Just like that, we have Metashock finding their 9th. Good stuff, all things considered, but I gotta say that it started to get relatively dicey at a certain point for them as, well, those last, it was a 3v2 situation, and Metashock did indeed actually lose 2 of their players. It was a 1v2, and they could have potentially been thrown onto the back foot, and in an alternate reality, Gecko could have been sitting on their 14th round right now as well.
Yeah, if one player was higher HP, they wouldn't have expected both players to be playing in that same angle, and so he had survived. Life would have been good. That would have been a 14th round, but no, denied. There are some technical difficulties, as you probably just witnessed on the stream, so we're going to get those fixed and hopefully pump back into the action very shortly. Tudors, it seems to be all on Gecko right now. 3 rounds away from victory on Metashock's map pick. It's concerning to say the least. However, if Metashock can find their way on forward, wriggle their way possibly, you know, towards double digits, closer to 11, 12, 13 rounds, then we could be looking at a possible overtime in map 1. We were mentioning the fact in the pre-game, and it was highlighted perfectly by Raiden, the fact that this is the most even map of the 3 for these guys. And so, you know, when does that put a question mark over the validity all in all? If this goes to overtime, then are we going to just see 2 whitewashes, or what's going to happen in that front?
I personally think that the remainder of this map is going to be a whitewash, all things considered. Don't get me wrong, the fact that the CTs were able to pick up that round, essentially denying Gecko their 14th, does technically mean that well, Metashock, they do stand a chance at winning or potentially stringing together a couple more rounds, but I personally don't see this push. I don't see Metashock actually pushing Inferno all the way to overtime. I think that the gap might just be a bit too large for them to close, and at the exact same time, there is one very, very specific moment that I actually did want to highlight from Gecko's last execution onto that B-bomb site. Now, obviously, there were a couple of mistakes that were made on the side of Metashock, and despite the fact that they claimed a dub at the end of the day, in that particular round, it still got extremely dicey. We had 2 players, 2 CTs, which were hunkering down onto the bomb site, but unfortunately enough, the timing was a tad bit mismatched. They were basically just cranking up their rifles, just rolling the scroll wheel, and just like that, they missed out on a couple of openings, and they actually suffered quite a bit of casualties. And the other thing that I actually do think is extremely noteworthy is the fact that Gecko, they were sitting on a plethora of utility to use to deny entry on the side of Gecko. And Gecko, you know what they had to work with? 2 little flashbangs, and they were able to pull off a site execution, cap 2 CTs, and get that bomb down. If you can't actually put up quite the biggest fight against 2 flashbangs when you do have the man advantage on your side, then I'm sorry, but it may not make the cut, and you might not be able to force it all the way to overtime. So Gecko, they're looking like really, really strong contenders to take Inferno all to themselves in the next couple of rounds.
Yeah. You make a very valid point there. Both teams evenly matched on paper, but what's separating the lot is the fact that Gecko are available to do whatever, whenever, and so this is as easy as could be for Gecko right now. It's up to Metashock to make those changes, and while they have this downtime to basically take a breather and go, you know what, it's fine. We've lost X amount of rounds. We've lost 13. We've won 9. Let's take a breather. Realize this game is still up in the air. It's still possible. Neither team has reached 16. And so, I mean, hope should be high until the final whistle. At least that's what you'd hope coming out of both of these sides. And so now, well, the question is, how quick are they going to be to respond? How quick are they going to realize their mistakes and patch up on them, Two Doors? We'll have to wait and see, because of course, hopefully this technical problem will be fixed very shortly. We'll be back into the action, and the pressure will be back on Metashock. They need to find themselves just something in this round. If they can find a 10th round here, I mean, we're going to be looking at a phenomenal start to quite possibly to come back to win their map pick.
Honestly, I really, really want to side with you. I love myself a good old-fashioned underdog story, and I think that despite the fact that there have been a couple of flaws and a couple of mistakes in the last portion of rounds that we actually did see, the fact that they are actually now coming right off the bat of a dub means that they actually do have some cash rolling, and they actually do now have the resources to much more properly and securely invest into their next rounds, meaning that, well, once again, they aren't necessarily forced back to square one after losing a bye round and forcing themselves back onto an eco, but now they actually do once again have a real shot at winning this matchup. And this technically has been the narrative between these two squads throughout the entire 22 rounds that we have seen, if I'm not mistaken. It's always a bad idea to do math, but I'll bite never regardless. This is the narrative that we have seen between these two squads. Metashock have always been on the back foot. They are always facing an uphill battle, and almost each and every single round that they have played thus far has technically been do or die. And much more often than not, it's unfortunately the latter for them. But in that last round, they were able to do something, and I hope that they're able to actually do more. We want to see it. We want to see them do more. Yeah.
100%. But Inferno, I mean, as much as we say it's still up in the air, with a 4-round lead, it's quite hard to lose this situation. However, it has been done before. It's been done in harsher conditions. It's been done in so many different ways that have been more brutal and less of a chance than this one, that it makes it look all the more possible. And I'm not saying it isn't, but I think in this scenario, it's quite unfortunate. This turn of events, this whole setup right now, it's a do or die situation for Metashock because they won the last round but lost the one before. They're going to be set back to minimal loss bonus. They're not going to have much money being brought on to the forthcoming round should they not have anything. So heading into this next round, I do believe it's not going to be a great one in any regard for Metashock. They need to find themselves this next round. If they don't, they're back to the eco, back to the chalkboard, and it's way too late to bring forward a buy that's going to be successful.
Okay, now unfortunately we are just actually getting confirmation as the match has been continuing on off screen. Unfortunately enough, we weren't able to bring you guys the action, but we can spoil the ending of the matchup. I'm not exactly sure if you'd want to do the honors retro, but for the time being, it turns out as if Gecko, they actually did end up winning Inferno, their opponents' map pick altogether. So massive congratulations coming out to Gecko for taking Inferno in the back end. Unfortunately, once again, we do apologize for not bringing you guys the action, but do not worry, because the next match, which is going to be Train, that is certainly going to be on your screens, and be ready to feast on them. For the time being, though, we are going to cut to a short little break so we can make sure that we have got things 100% safe and secure, to make sure that there are no more issues on our end, so you guys in Twitch chat can continue to enjoy the fun as we have thus far. So make sure to go ahead and microwave yourself some popcorn, grab yourself a beverage, get yourself tucked in nice and neat, and we'll see you back here for map 2 between Gecko and Metashock in just a couple of minutes.
All right, guys. So that was the first map, which Gecko does end up taking, 16 to 9 or 10, I think. So let's get our thoughts from the casters and from myself. So let me start off with you. What did you think of Gecko's performance there?
Surprising by every regard. I feel like coming into this series, we were talking about Gecko being a strong side, but they delivered very, very well. To take a 16-10, I do believe it was a very impressive standpoint all in all. I'm excited to see sort of how this goes into the second map, Raiden, because of course now this is their map pick. That was Metashock's map pick. So the scary thought now is after Inferno, what does that speak about map 2? What does that speak about the whole series in general? If you can't pick up your map, you've got to be questioning your thoughts heading into game 2.
I mean, don't get me wrong, at the end of the day, it's not necessarily that much of an oddity to see teams win each other's own map picks, but when it happens in that kind of fashion, where Metashock, they were always on the back foot and they were always fighting that uphill battle against a Gecko, it does beg the question, can they possibly muster the strength to force us all the way to our decider map? I don't know. It's going to be tough to see.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there because I think Inferno should have been the sort of middle ground for both teams, but seeing as it was just like a 16-10 and even aside from the scoreline, I think Echo had a pretty dominating sort of performance there. I think all the rounds that they won were not really close. There were not that very many random clutches or something. So I think it doesn't look great for the side of Bern or Metashock, but let's see. So I was slightly disappointed maybe in Krause's performance, I think, because he's very clearly the highest elo player there, probably should be the best player, but he didn't have as much impact as maybe I would have liked to see from him. And on the side of Zurich, I think Rapsi, for example, or MK, I think they stepped up multiple times, had these sorts of multi-kills. I think that was really just missing from Bern's side, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You raise a valid point in the fact that I feel like, as I was talking about in the pre-game, it should be those players stepping up, the high elo, high impact players stepping up to the table where it matters, finding themselves a good footing. But in this, it just sort of seemed a bit, I want to say unfortunate, but it was just something was lacking for them. And I hope they change that heading into map 2, because you can tell as a bunch of individuals, they are talented, but when it's sort of meshed together, they struggled. Two Doors made a very valid point just before you went to the break in the fact that, Gecko found their way onto the bomb site with like 2 flashbangs and a smoke. They smoked CT, flashbang over the top twice, and then that was it. The site was gone. They gave up all B control. They had to play the retake. They just couldn't get it done. And so we need to see more impact from them on the CT, and I feel like more aggressiveness on the T, because they lacked the man advantage the majority of the time.
All right, so with that note, I'm sorry to cut you off there, Two Doors, but I think the second map is on the way, so I'm going to throw it to you guys to take it away for map 2. Let's see if Metashock can make it back.
Definitely. We hope that Metashock can give Gecko for a run in their money. And before Raiden did actually dip on out, I did want to actually add something onto the overall sort of tango that we've been seeing these two squads. And typically when you do end up finding yourself in a kind of matchup that we have just witnessed, usually a lot of these two squads, or the vast majority of squads, they will usually identify with themselves with a certain role depending on exactly what the matchup asks of them, whether that be proactive or reactive. And to a certain extent, I feel extremely confident in saying that Gecko, they were always putting their best foot forward. They were always in the driver's seat, and they were being extremely proactive regardless as to whether or not they had the resources to pull off the job. And that does automatically mean that Metashock, you've got to fill that reactive role. You have to be able to shut down your opponents when it matters the most. But unfortunately enough, they weren't necessarily able to get that done properly, especially in that last round, since there were tons of highlights as to the mistakes that were being made. So obviously now, with a break just technically it's nearly being wrapped up, they have had a bit of time for a mental reset as well. I'm pretty sure that they're probably their own worst critics as well, so they've realized exactly what the bumps in the road have been and how to properly scrape those down, minimize them as much as possible, so they can really put up a fight on train and force us all the way to Mirage.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of hype, a lot of frags, and a lot of action. Two Doors, map 1 gone. Our second map at the ready. We are jumping into the server now. We're going to go live with the game very, very shortly. And obviously, our words about Inferno, we're going to put them in the past. Map 2 needs to be nothing but the best from Metashock. If they want to live through this best of 3 and find themselves on a third and final. It needs to be done right here on Train, I do believe. And then, of course, if they do even want to try and take home Train, and if they do get that done, then we're looking at Mirage as our decider. Again, another map I feel like Gecko are going to exceed him from the limited knowledge and awareness that we have from these two teams.
Yeah.
I feel like Gecko are a lot more tuned to these sort of puggy, flashy plays that work out so effectively against their opposition. It is just going to be unfortunate. We'll have to wait and see though, Toodles. Hopefully we're going to get into the action soon and really kick things off here on Train.
Yeah, Train as a whole, it's a really, really interesting map and not necessarily one that I have all too much experience with, just because of the fact that the architecture and the way that it's been designed by nature means that you've got tons of long angles to work with, but it's also got a healthy balance of CQB engagements that do take place, specifically over by Ivy if you're looking to take control of that portion of the map, pushing in through the junkyard and eventually executing onto the A-bomb side. But obviously we're gonna have to put a lot of emphasis over towards whoever is starting off on the CT side, and I'm gonna have to double check that super duper quickly because I don't know it off the top of my head, and it's indeed gonna be Metashock starting off on the CT side. And we saw exactly just how much they struggled with it on Inferno, and with Train being a massively different dynamic, all things considered, they're gonna have to come out of the gate swinging right here and right now as the first round of Train is starting to get underway.
Absolutely. Gecko on this T side. You see they bring forward a P250 smoke flashbang, and they're dying in towards B. The alarming factor is no one's in towards lower, so those gunshots were the start of this push. Nim will drop out towards upper tons. Is anyone going to clear the angle? Oh, it's going to be close. He's going to be spotted out, however. A big information gathered. Scopelos going to back on away. They know this player's isolated towards upper. If they want to push for it, they will. But nice shot from Nim will drop to catch off the first. A second kill should not be allowed, and it will not be for the time being. But Krause, nice shot there onto Scopelos. Rod drop. Rapsy and MK back and forth. Another shot found. A 1 versus 1 on the line. Krause, good for 2 already. Doesn't have a kit, however. It's going to be problematic. Rapsy dropping a decoy on forward. Krause pushing on up. Stuck on the ladder. Jumps on forward. He does find the kill. Does he have the time? He didn't know where to go. Back and forth. Is there enough time? No, there is not. Metashot concede the Pisto and Gecko by the skin of their teeth. They pick up round 1.
By the skin of their teeth, indeed. And I don't mean to sound like a broken record just going on and repeating exactly what you said, but that came dastardly close between those two squads. It was back and forth, and as you can see, the kill feed, it was being painted both yellow and blue. It was back and forth between these two squads, but ultimately Gecko take it away all to themselves. And we even did see the last remaining CT. At a certain point, he was scrambling, trying to listen to his teammates to see if a kit may have been dropped somewhere in the vicinity, but he unfortunately couldn't locate it. If that may have been the case in an alternate universe, Metashock would have been sitting with a round already to their name, but unfortunately enough, it wasn't in the cards for them. But now, round number 2, Metashock, they've indeed actually forced out a UMP and MP9 as well as a Deagle, so they are looking to take the fight directly towards Gecko. They've just got to play their cards right this time.
Yeah, and a Mac 10 up close towards E-Box isn't exactly the best of chances for Metashock within this round, but closing the distance, Rod has caught off the first. The flashbang's done well. Lumori's caught off a second. It becomes alarming, but still, the 3 primary rifles in the picture. Roman taking some serious damage. Rapsy not able to convert either. They need to find these kills quite quickly. Noxus finds another, and it's crumbling. Metashock still have 4 players remaining. The ACAL and Rapsy's low HP. MK is sitting at full. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a trade of guns here. At least that's what should happen, considering MK is the higher HP of the 2. But Rapsy feeling confident with the AK, looking for any chance possible. A 4 versus 2, and a chance for Metashock to tie things up here as Gecko move back towards B. There's going to be the double stack patiently waiting.
Definitely so. And the moment that the call comes through and Metashock realized that the execution is indeed being set into motion, well, these last 2 players, Rapsy and AK, they might just be as good as dead, and indeed they are. They can't check all their corners, and just like that, it's all down to MK. He's got an AK to work with, but unfortunately enough, time is not on his side. It's going to start working as a 6th defender, as he has indeed been spot on out. And he's caught with a molly, but he's able to actually find the drop onto Nimble as well. But time, once again, simply isn't on his side. The clock, it's going to hit 000, and just like that, we have Metashock pulling things back into their favor. And there's one thing that I do want to touch on super quickly. We may be early days into Train, but not into the series altogether. Metashock, they were tired of being kicked around, and now they're doing the kicking themselves. That was a very decisive round number 2 that they have just shown us right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well played. All in all, a lovely job from them. And as we move on forward into round 3, you see the investment coming out for Gecko. They are expecting a bomb plant from this round. And I think it's interesting to see. But Nim will drop with the first. Very nice to start things off for them. Well, now, Roman... Oh, he spots the man, spams the D. Nicely done. And, well, now the pressure inbound. Hypnoxus has traded, but the bomb's set in place. That's what Gecko wanted out of this round. They wanted a little bit of a cash injection. That's exactly what they get. Krause gifted Rapsy a first kill found, and MK and Skopelos alone against 4. It's going to be unlikely, but if there is a weapon to do it from this upper position, if you can find the 1D onto the AWP, it'd be good enough. But the bomb's going to be stuck. These two players nowhere to be seen. And in fact, nice first shot. Oh, big damage, but not the second. And the bomb, it'll be defused. And Metashock find a second.
That almost came a bit too close, especially when we did actually have MK just somehow waltzing his way in through that mid connector, being able to catch one of the players on the side of Metashock quite literally with their pants around their ankles, and he was almost able to find the double as well. My oh my, how the turns could have tabled, but luckily enough for Metashock, they basically had a sixth sense working in their favor that time around, and they were able to shut down Gecko before things got a bit too dicey. Unfortunately enough, we did have one of the players on the T side disconnect, but hey, presto, they're already back, so we won't have to waffle on for that much longer. But one thing that I actually did want to point out, we were only 2 rounds in. Metashock, they were already able to get themselves an op on their side, and they're going to put it to the best use possible. And once again, Gecko relegated to yet another eco round means that they'll have to build up this loss bonus before they can properly come back swinging.
Yeah, and now, well, Hypnoxus going to gather the information. The push inbound. Scopelos absolutely tanking the HE grenade. He'll fall in the early stages. A nice shot, though, from Hurdle has left Gecko in a 4 versus 4. Rod looking for an opener, an opportunity. Lumori with the grenade, however, chimes in first. We're to a 2 versus 4. Make it 1. MK alone. The AWP claims another soul. And well, a 5% win chance, it says at the top, quickly reduced to 0 as Metashock pick up their 3rd. And a good start to their CT half and a way back into this series all in all.
I'm pretty sure that the tiny little intermission that we had between Inferno and Train has certainly served Metashock really, really well, because this, at the very least, it appears to me that this is an entirely different roster than what we saw earlier in map number 1. They're pulling out all the stops. They're throwing caution to the wind. They are in the driver's seat, and they are dictating the pace that, unfortunately enough, Gecko cannot keep up with this time around. But things may start to change as Gecko have finally mustered up enough cash to actually full buy. They've got 1 op on their side. Despite all the speculation that we had done before we hopped into the action, we may not yet see the double op setup be brought out just yet. Maybe that's in the cards for a bit later on, but we'll have to do with what we currently have on our plate.
Absolutely. And 1:15 to go within round 5. Gecko need to be appropriate on this push. They need to find themselves something at least to work with, because on this full buy they can't afford to wait around. It's Metashock controlling the play. They can't find the opener, and that in turn is just going to give up the round, and Rapsy might just have to be the man to do it towards the IV position, slowly edging his way on out. Krause looking for a chance, an opportunity quite possibly, but the AK shots rattling early, leaving this disengagement completely on the cards. 5 versus 5. Rapsy dipping back in for seconds, nothing to be found. A Molotov that lands deep. Perhaps he's still willing to go for it. Scapelos taking damage in the meantime. And with 40 seconds to go, finally, Gecko hit on out towards this A site. It could be a perfect chance as well. Oh my word, if Scapelos pushes this smoke, it could be huge. But working around it as well could be a big chance.
They need to be surgical. That's what this round requires this time around from Gecko. We have yet to see any casualties, but that is soon to change as Scoffel also finds the first, shuts down Rod, and now the push in through Ivy. It's actually been shut down as Krause is there to reinforce Hypnoxus, but no, the bomb has indeed gone down, and MK, he's able to go absolutely massive as Roman chimes in with one of his own, relegating Hypnoxus and Nimble to fighting their way out of this 2v4 scenario, but no Scopella's. He's got the drop onto Hypnoxus. Metashock, they won't even be able to keep that AWP intact this time around. It's all down to Nipple, and once again, or Nimble, excuse me. Time isn't on his side, and he can't contest this whatsoever. Gecko, they're finally able to bounce back. They've got their second round, one more to go, and they've tied things up.
Absolutely. Very well played. And well, now Gecko have proved their value, prove their worth. And now, I mean, this is going to be an interesting one. I think it's all up in the air at this point in time. If Metashock lose this round, they're back onto the eco, back onto an unfortunate situation where they can't really bring forward all too much to the table. We're looking at Deagles, P250s, that sort of buy, and that is not going to be a good one. And Scopella's opened things up towards B. Now the rotate has to happen, and a double rotate, in fact, a double nade towards Ivy. I mean, Gecko are controlling the play so well, and Metashock have no clue on what they want to do.
No, indeed they don't. They're trying to divide and conquer, but what exactly are they going to conquer for the time being? They're trying to shut down the players over by Ivy, but things have gone desperately south as they've lost their first point of contact. MK is still lingering around that particular position, but he's might soon actually have to fall off, as there is a perfectly precise crossfire laid up directly for him, but in sneaks Roman, or I believe that was actually Hiddles, gets that bomb down, but he's going to be shut down, unfortunately enough. And now here comes Kraus. He has to whip out the USP, but he can't shut down the Opera on the opposite side of the spectrum. It's a 2v1 scenario now with MK left all on his lonesome. Has to hang on for dear life. And all he needed was 5 extra HP to shut down Hypnoxus, convert it into a 1v1, and potentially Gecko could have now been sitting on their third round, but Metashock overcoming all of the challenges. They're going to find their fourth. However, they are starting to look a little bit worse for wear. Money might not be the best on their side, and Gecko, they can force out yet another round this time.
Yeah, that was the only benefit to this whole round. Getting that bomb plant meant everything to Gecko within this round to bring forward the buy. And it was very well played there for Lil to get that down and allow Gecko some money in their pockets. But they need to go for a quick A play. They need to assert dominance and pressure towards A site. They're not going to be scared. Nice first. It should be. No! A little. Man, come on. That's an easy kill, and he can't convert in the end. Rafsy looking for a wild shot as well to at least try and level out the odds ever so slightly. But even then, it's just not going to be good. It's not going to be great in any regard as Metashock. Well, now, in a 5 versus 3, now a 5 versus 2, it becomes near impossible for them to lose. But MK, oh, if he can find something here, Nimble drops on back, and MK pushes on forward. Very nice shot from him, though. 4 versus 2, but the bombs drop towards A main. And Gecko, a lot of work to do within this scenario.
However, Roman behind enemy lines could be the difference maker. He's able to shut down Krause. That does mean that the tip or the scales have been tipped in the favor of Gecko ever so slightly, but not for long. Lamori's going to clean up MK just before he was able to cause too much chaos in the B bomb side. It's all down to Roman, and despite the fact that he has actually salvaged this op, pulling off a 1v3 scenario, if he's even able to actually live up to the name of Olafmeister, might just not necessarily be the narrative we see in round number 7 right here. He is still trying to get that extra 800 bucks in his back pocket if he's able to get that bomb down, but it's not necessarily going to happen. Now relegated to just 2 points worth of HP, anything is going to clean him up as a frag grenade just goes zooming on by. It's not necessarily going to claim his life just yet, but once again, time is starting to run out. 10 seconds left, and the moment he tries to stick the plant, the audio cue is going to give it away, and he's caught with his knife out by Lamori. Metashock, they're able to expand their gap now to 3 rounds, and Gecko once again back to square one on an eco round.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get a replay of this round. MK, missed shots, missed opportunity, and Roman at this point in time, I mean, 1 versus 3. Nothing much you can do. Lumori, very well played, double within the round, and that puts Metashock now 3 rounds ahead of Gecko. But being on this T side, it is interesting. There is a timeout. Now, here's the thing, right? With rules and regulation, technically, because no damage has been done within the round, this round can be restored. This shouldn't be live And yeah, we're calling
Yeah,
for a
there we go.
restart, and there you go. Okay, so it's an interesting one. And you know, always got to live by the rule book and
Always.
understand. You know, no damage done within the round, then you restart the round. And so while we're gonna wait for the player to reconnect, you're gonna see our lovely faces, possibly for the last time. But as I say, that Metashock have been putting up a hell of a fight, and by the looks of things, they're still in the game, and they still have a very good chance of taking the best of 3 entirely.
Yeah, definitely so, and especially speaking from past experience in a lot of matchups that I have seen outside of Pulse organized matches for CSGO, typically you would see Train to be, well, it technically leans much more towards the T side if I'm not mistaken, just because of the fact that the map's architecture by nature means that there are so many more open spaces and overall portions of the map that you do have to worry about. So the fact that Metashock have been able to put on this kind of performance in the 7 rounds of regulation and play that we have seen thus far, it's quite a surprise and a pleasant one at that as well. Something just snapped in between that break between Inferno and now Train. They've been activated to a certain extent, and I'm absolutely loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see where this one goes, and hopefully this break is quite short. We did have some technical problems in the start of this one, I do believe. Two doors.
One of the players had dipped, and
yeah,
they reconnect, so that may be the same case this time.
Yeah, exactly. It was the exact same player, in fact, two doors. So an interesting one to see. I'm excited to sort of see how this one directs and where this one goes. It's an important series all in all. You know, an important map, an integral one in that to the series, because if Gecko find this, then, you know, job done. 2-0, it's as easy as could be. But for Metashock, if, you know, Bern can manage to pick up this map, which, bearing in mind, is Gecko's map pick, then the whole best of 3 is up in the air. You know, you've got to think about the whole integral part of this best of 3 is that realistically you should be winning your map pick. If Bern can't take their map pick and Zurich can't take their map pick, neither of these sides can take their own map. Then what does that say about the third? What does that say about the decider? Are we ever going to see the end of this best of 3? I mean, who knows?
Nobody knows. I mean, obviously that is something that I myself do actually laugh about quite often on the job as well, though. If you're unable to win your own map pick, both teams aren't able to actually do that. Obviously, who's gonna win that decider map? It's not necessarily anybody's pick, and it could technically go either way, but obviously Mirage is still over the horizon for the time being, and we're only 7 rounds into Train as well. It's still technically early days of map number 2, not necessarily the series as a whole, but Gecko, they have at the very least started to actually run a bit low on fuel in the tank. Something has not necessarily been clicking this time around, and I'm not exactly sure if it's because of the fact that they haven't been able to get the ball rolling that early on the way that they were able to do so on Inferno, or it might simply just be the shock that Metashock, it might simply be the fact that Metashock have since actually turned over a new leaf.
Toodles.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a fun fact from you. IC, one of our back end people, has just provided us with a fun fact. Halil bought a new computer because the old one crashed all the time, and this one just crashed again.
Ouch.
Yeah,
It's gotta be rough.
I'm interested to see. So, I want to see sort of how this one this an L for the pockets. However.
Oh, we're back.
We're live. I don't know why it
Yeah.
says not ready next to both sides, but it's Metashock and Gecko. It is Train. It is 5-2, and we're back live with the action.
I don't understand why it also says not ready next to the team names, but if I have to read not ready in the kill feed, that is going to throw me off my casting so bad. Okay, thank goodness.
You're fine, you're fine.
Bit of a scare, but it's fine. Question is, are Gecko going to have a bit of a scare themselves? Now that the push is starting to come on through, Krause's going to open things up, and Nimble didn't even know what hit him. Gecko, they find themselves on the bomb site, and a missed pop shot coming out from Hypnoxis is going to come to bite him. He can't even connect the second one, and just like that, Gecko, they've gotten the bomb down. They're cleaning up shop, but before Lumori is able to clap back himself, he's able to take down Hiddle, and that does leave us in a 2v2 scenario, and it's going to be tentative. Both of these two tag team duos have got to play this to perfection, and Rhapsody's the first to make a mistake, and there's Roman as well. He's not long for this world, and just like that, Metashock, they're able to find their 6th round. They got a bit too close for comfort, but when we're able to hit the nail on the coffin, you can't really complain.
What a quad kill from Lumori within that round. Number 8 secured, and it's Metashock 6. It becomes quite apparent at this point in time, you know. It's an interesting one. Gecko had invested pistols into this one, and at one point in time, we found themselves in a 3 versus 2 situation. 3 versus 2 with pistols against rifles. Unfortunately, they couldn't convert. They decided to swing, decided to peek. They choked completely and threw that round in the bin. So, round 9 is an important one. They did get the bomb plant, which is a very integral part to this buy, as they bring forward everything. Ooh, good spot from Roman. The question is, will he be able to convert? He does spot the man, fires, doesn't convert though. It's an unfortunate situation, but MK in towards B has caught off one, and that's warranted to rotate. It's now 3 players out towards A, and this is where it could get from bad to worse, and Roman snipes Grousey out the air. A lovely shot from the Gecko side. The AWPer delivers once more, and Metashock down to 3. It's gone from bad to worse, and Gecko now looking strong.
Indeed they are. They're starting to drop in through Pop as well, and eventually, well, the execution is finally going to hit the defense of Metashock. They've got to hold on for dear life as they've started to call in for backup. A couple of players being lit up over by the main chassis of the train. That is Rod. He's the next to fall, but Lamori creeping in can shut down the bomb before it goes down, but he can still contest this round. But no, when you've got each and every single rifle on the side of Gecko trained towards your general location, well, there's only one thing that you can do, and that is unfortunately just be taken out of commission. It's all down to Hypnoxus, who unfortunately enough once again cannot contest or even try to mount a retake at all. This is the first round that Gecko are going to be able to take in quite a while. They're finally able to hit 3, as Hypnoxus is going to try to hold on to this op for the next couple of seconds. But regardless, let's digest what we just saw in that round. Gecko, they were brutal. They were ruthless. Metashock, they were doing a lot of the kicking in the 7 rounds that we have just seen thus far. And Gecko, they got tired of it. Finally taking matters into their own hands and putting Metashock in their place. Hopefully, this is the start to something beautiful for Gecko and potentially that 2-0 that you so desperately want to see, Retro.
Yeah, I mean, for my prediction's sake, I'd hope so. But Metashock have been showing signs of life. Gecko got to be careful into this round. However, I mean, you've got to look at the rifles. You've got to look at the buy. It's poor from Metashock. They've brought forward a 5.7 and a P250. Admitting that that's all they can bring forward into this round. They've just got to be cautious. Roman does take a bullet early on, hit Noxus with the AWP though. This is going to be the wow factor for Metashock, but they just decide to peek on out. And a first kill granted. Metashock put Gecko down to 4, but a quick trade from Scarpellos in towards the Ivy position. Doubles down on it as well. Does find a triple. Scarpellos is a machine. Hit Noxus back and forth. Taken out by MK. And nibble drop. What are you doing to me, Two Doors? You ruined it. You said it first, and now it's in my head. Nibble drop against 3. It's stuck in my head, man. Come on. It's against 3. There's no time remaining. At least to try and attempt a retake. It could be valuable to pick up a gun, but there's no way he wins this round. The wise man would save a nibble drop. Should be following suit, but he's already been tracked down. They know he's got an AWP, and his time should be imminent. As now in towards the back 6 position, bomb ticking away.
He's completely full flash. Basically, his retinas are burning for the time being. Time, it really is on his side anymore. And as you said, he's got to save that op. Hold on to it for dear life, but obviously, I do think that Metashock, they greatly shot themselves in the foot in that particular round. The fact that they weren't necessarily able to actually substitute 2 of those pistols, that P250 and that 5.7 for something just a tad bit more competent, it overall actually spelled disaster for them. And the main reason why I'm actually saying that is because the first player who was taken out on the side of Metashock, that was Rod. He was playing over by Ivy. Now naturally, the moment that you do have one of your players actually taken down, that means that a trade is up for grabs. And that's what we saw Metashock actually try to claim. But their rifler, if I'm not mistaken, that was Lamori. He couldn't land the shots onto the player that was pushing in through Ivy, and then just like that, who was it? Was it Rapsy or Hiddle? Finds a triple kill in that round. And just like that, round was already gone in the hands of Gecko.
Scopelos that found the
It was
triple.
Scopelos, yeah.
Hypnogus finds the first though. Scopelos yet again towards Ivy. Rapsy finds another Nimble drop, looking to get in towards Pop Dog, but it should have been a lot quicker because the rotate, well, they aren't going to be quite as valuable, and it's a near flawless round for Gecko within 11 as they find themselves a fifth, one round away from tying things up. And considering they're on the T side, two doors, it becomes very apparent if they can't catch up and find the half meta shock by a substantial lead, then I believe it's just going to be as easy as could be. Gecko should be taking this 2-0. It's all in the hands of Metashock. They need the desperation play to work, and this buy round, again, a do-or-die situation. Utility at a minimum as Metashock try and bring forward the bare bones of a buy to find themselves 7.
There's 4 rounds left in the half to go, meaning that the best that Metashock can get out of this is a 10-5 split, or on the opposite side, Gecko. They can find themselves not only the opening pick on the round, but a 9-6 scoreline as well, dropping or at least faking the drop in towards ladder. Well, that is going to be Rapsy dancing with the devil, but narrowly managing to get away, scampering away from harm. Just like that, well, I believe Gecko, they're already prepping themselves up for some kind of execution onto the A-bomb side. Missed Molly is practically going to burn the entire complex down to a crisp. But regardless, Gecko, they're buying themselves time and waiting for the right moment to pounce, and I believe that's now.
They should do it now. It's 58 seconds on the clock, but Hypnoxus with one. A little with a trade. Lumori good for one, but Gecko's trading effective to the maximum. Another kill found. Hypnoxus to edge on out of first. Should be a second. Oh, missed spray by Little. And it's a 1 versus 1. MK needs to find it. He's in towards the Pop Dog position. If he drops on down, it's suicide for certain. But instead, he's going to head towards main. This is an intelligent play. Hypnoxus expecting a B push, expecting the flank towards Ivy, but he's going back to the grassroots A standard main push. But with 20 seconds, he's got to do it quick. He can't afford to hold the shift key the whole way, and he's got to let go of it now. Why is he walking in this situation? 17 seconds, you need to clear a bomb site. You haven't got the bomb. There's no time to shift. There's no time to plant. There's no time for Gecko to even find this round. He ran at the wrong times. He tried to play smart. He tried to play efficient. But hold on, taps the bomb, peeks life, and there you go. Hypnoxus trades. He should have stuck the bomb. It was an unfortunate turn of events. It was a do-or-die scenario, and by the skin of their teeth, Metashock finds 7. But the money, two doors, isn't going to be great. So heading into round 13, the buy set back to a minimum, and Gecko, this is a greater chance than the last to find themselves even in a better position.
Definitely so, and I've really got to I really got to question the play that Hypnoxus was actually pulling off. Mainly, despite the fact that he actually did win the round, all he really had to do was just keep himself tucked nice and cozy and wait for that audio cue to actually come on through. He didn't need to take the risk of wide swinging onto that last remaining T, but regardless, I shouldn't be complaining nor criticizing Metashock. They're able to find their 7th, and despite the fact that this may be somewhat of an underwhelming buy, they still have a realistic shot at stringing together a couple more rounds. Hypnoxus gets a mad dink to the head, relegated to 40 HP, and he continues to persist at the top of heaven, but he's soon to fall off. Now that Gecko have the opening casualty on their side, they're free to do whatever they want on train in this round.
Yeah, and look at the rotates here from Metashock. They've ditched the ace bomb site effectively completely. They have got a man in towards heaven. Krause is going to be the god and the jack of all trades. He has found a first. Rapsy, nice one tap there onto Rod, pushing straight in towards connector. A very nice one from him. A second granted and gifted. Wrapped as well quite nicely. Hypnoxus trying to sneak play. MK dropping him out, and Krause making all the noise, letting him know he's going to peek right into connector, into the jaws of Little, and this should be a 6th round on the board for Gecko. They convert ever so nicely, and 1 round in it again, two doors, and the money from Metashock, as worse as it would have been had they have lost the last, as they find themselves at the bare bones of an eco. They have to bring forward the best, and I do believe they're on a single round loss bonus, and so that's going to be less money in their pockets. They have to buy this. Look at the money. They're on a double eco. Well, I guess it's the 14th round, so sorry for cutting you off, but yeah, it's the 14th round. So yeah, they should eco, but in any good scenario, they would have bought this one.
Yeah, okay, hello. Well, that is Roman already relegated to 6 HP, and he's going to be taken out of commission, and just like that, we have Metashock losing 2 players, and at this certain point, yeah, you're only sitting on about $2,000 ahead, and you can really try to take, the only thing you can actually do is try to take all of the high risk, high rewards plays that actually do pop themselves up. They've been able to already clean up Roman, meaning that they could potentially have 4 more players to power through. However, it's looking relatively unlikely. As you can see, the AI, they've got their money on Gecko for the time being, and so do I, as the bomb has indeed gone down. It's a glorified post plant at Metashock. They might not be able to contest it, despite all the fancy flanks they try to pull off. Well, Nimble, he's going to be dropped at the hands of MK, and there goes Lamori as well, leaving Hypnoxus. He's got the Deagle, the most iconic pistol in the entire game, but it's going to take a miracle and a half for him to actually pull off any form of heroics.
Absolutely. Well, now bomb ticking away, and there you go. Just like that, it's done. It is going to be 7 apiece. Now, even if the Metashock side are to win this round, an A7.5 is really not good on the CT side of Train. Now, I don't want to hype down Metashock in any way. They might have an unreal T-half like we see from Gecko, but it needs to start with the pistol. No matter how this one goes, no matter if Metashock win or Gecko win, is Metashock demanding the pistol round victory. Rapsy to find the first. Spray from Halil is wild, but damage has been done. Yumori low HP. Still good for one on the back of the site. A second could be found, denied by the AK of Halil, finishing the job he started not too long ago. Rod in with a trade as well. A 3 versus 3, and MK low HP through the tag and through the molly, but a nice shot onto Nimble drop these things now to a 2 versus 2 as Hypnoxus back and forth, finding the headshot. MK to drop the smoke. And the spam on in. Do they know that Roman's up close? Rod's taking some serious damage. Hypnoxus swings. Roman good for 1 though. And they know this last player's in towards the back of the site. Roman going for the no-scope. Leg, pistol out. Needs to find a kill. Will he find it? Yes, he will. And Gecko take 8.
Roman, I saw he tried to actually do Hypnoxus dirty just by actually trying to no-scope the last remaining CT into next Friday from the ladder itself, but regardless, doing it the old-fashioned way with a P250 surely gets the job done. And this has been a really, really interesting first half that we saw on Train, all things considered, given the fact that Metashock, they were able to find 6 rounds so easily, so swiftly, to the point that they looked like a well-oiled machine. But Gecko, because of the fact that they were able to build up a massive enough loss bonus and then take the fight directly to Metashock after being kicked around for the good side of 8 to 9 rounds, they're able to actually take the lead themselves and convert it. They now maintain a 1-round advantage over Metashock, which is a massive shift in overall dynamicism. And the fact that Metashock have since scampered away and fallen off ever so slightly doesn't necessarily spell success for them at all.
Yeah, it's an alarming factor now that Metashock, if they can't find this pistol, it's going to be unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. I hear buy noises. I hear all sorts of movement. And I do believe we're back in the server for the second half as these replays run dry. We're going to find ourselves in a very important pistol. Metashock 7, Gecko 8. If Gecko find the pistol, they're on great terms to win this series.
And they did find the previous pistol as well, if I'm not mistaken. It came, well, there was only actually 1 player left standing on the side of Metashock, and unfortunately enough, he couldn't get the defuse. That's what happened last time around. Lovely little shots being traded left, right, and center between these 2 squads is going to leave Metashock in a 2v4 situation, and just like that, it's actually a 1v2. Rod, he's putting that Glock to such good use, but unfortunately enough, the challenge was a bit too tall for him to accomplish, and just like that, well, Metashock clearly on the back foot, unable to back themselves. The second pistol round on Train, this is a bit of a yikes, but regardless, Gecko, they are well on their way to closing off this best of 3 series nice and easy.
Yeah, absolutely. 9-7 the scoreline. Metashock now not going to be in a great position all in all. They really are not going to be in a good position. The full eco in this round, if this MP9 or either of them finds the damage, it could be big. But a first kill found. Rod with a nice 1D has caught off the FAMAS. Rapsy to scoop it up. Halil is good for the first. It's Rod to fall. That's the Desert Eagle gone. And the 4 Glocks to remain, excuse me. It's an unfortunate turn of events. Metashock not in the best of positions. However, a gun drop could turn the tides completely. But getting out towards back green to retrieve it is going to be a near impossible task, especially when there's an M4A1S in the action.
Yeah, not only that, we can also see that MK is now starting to push up towards Ivy, and he shuts down Nimble, who was just lingering around over by those garbage disposal units, and that is going to leave Hypnoxus and Lamori. Well, 2 men, and they've certainly got some bright dreams, but unfortunately enough, they'll turn into nightmares as they've both been put to rest. Just like that, we have Gecko expanding their lead by 3 rounds, and, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is somewhere in the ballpark of 4 rounds unanswered. They are currently riding an absolutely massive wave of momentum that Metashock can't shut down, unfortunately enough.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. It's going to be very, very rough. Heading into round 18, Gecko, everything on the line as the AK's being brought forward for Metashock. As you mentioned, probably the best chance of success for the MP9 and the Molly. Oh my god, look at the HP bars disintegrate for Metashock. Rod sub-half, Krause joining him on that as well, and even Hypnotis getting in on it. Oh my word, Gecko. That is disgusting from Helena and Roman, as it's 2 kills for nothing. A 4 versus 2 post-plant. The flanks inbound for Arapsi. That is one of the most convincing rounds I think I've watched in the past week, 2 doors. Gecko absolutely slaughtered them. It was a 5 AK buy, and they could not do anything about it. Metashock are not convinced right now, and I'm not convinced either. Gecko, 5 rounds away from victory, 5 rounds from 2-0, and 5 rounds away from finding themselves this victory, and as you mentioned, all the bragging rights within this series.
Oh, that is absolutely disheartening on the side of Metashock. They obviously still have just a bit of change left so they can buy some rifles into this round, but the fact that they didn't actually have a smoke to, well, dissipate all of the flames at the bottom of ramp, that did not spell success for them whatsoever, because of the fact that that particular Molotov, it simply put an end to 1 player and then softened up an extra 3 terrorists. And they were basically just ready to be cleaned up with a couple of 9mm rounds on the side of Gecko. This means that Metashock are looking a little bit worse for wear, and when you've got MK randomly spraying and praying through the Ivy smoke, finds the head of Krause, you know you're in a bad position if you're in the shoes of Metashock right now.
1 minute and 15 on the clock, 2 doors. The story is now a 4 versus 4. This is the best chance Metashock have had in a little while. And considering, yeah, again, they're on a bye. No. They have to deliver, but look at this. They're pushing towards Pop Dog. There's a second man there, and they don't trade. It's granted a very big chance now, a very big window for success. A 4 versus 3, however. It's still possible for the Metashock side, but at 7-11... every opportunity needs to be converted for the Metashock side. They can't afford to lose. Now, well, time ticking away. 40 seconds, 2 doors. All 3 players grouped in towards B. They can't afford to rotate. They have to hit it now. Smoke in. Flashbangs over the top. Scopelos. He's just going to push on in. Clear the upper position. No one's there. He knows that both players down lower. Easy first kill in his sights. He's waiting for the second. Trigger discipline at the extreme. Scopelos is a genius, is a god, and Gecko 4 from victory within this best of 3.
That was really, really well played on the side of Scopelos. Just remaining cool, calm, and collected, and as you stated, trigger discipline pushed and cranked up all the way to 11, just waiting for the last 2 T's to walk directly into his line of sight. He was able to just hold down mouse 1, and that was the end of that. But Metashock are struggling in every regard. Money's not on their side, neither is weaponry, and nor is information, and that is the one thing that has been lacking so far. They're unable to gather it and unable to actually act properly upon it. But look at this, Krause now taking matters into his own hands, finds one with the Tech 9, and so will Hypnoxus, finally joining in on the fun. He's good for the double as well, and that leaves MK and Scopelos in a 2v2, and they're able to convert it into a 2v1, soon to be a 2v none, as Lamori, he's still at the mercy of this P250, and with 45 HP to work with, a single shot from either 2 of these ARs is gonna put you in the grave. But they didn't even spot him out. He got the jump on him. 2 quick pulls of the trigger, and just like that, Metashock, they got the miracle they wanted.
Unreal. So well played. And Metashock find 8. But we're in a very similar situation than we were not too long ago, 2 doors, in the regard that at this scoreline, even if Metashock are to find this round, then Gecko still have all the right tools to find victory. That flashbang is amazing, however. It slipped a man out towards Olof. Well, See, moving forward. Spam is wild and no damage done. Roman's just going to escape with 73. A little with the first. And a second kill found through the smoke. Rapsy doing so much damage onto Krause. Hypnoxis dropped. Nimmel is good for the trade. Nimmel for a second. A 3 versus 2, but still in Gecko's favor. Everything working their way. And another kill found and a disgusting headshot from Rapsy. He's Rod against all odds. And he's got a 1 versus 3 to work with. Not enough time. Not enough space. And most certainly not the HP as Gecko 3 steps away from finding victory within this best of 3. As 13-8 the scoreline stands.
That was the round that Metashock needed to win, not just because of the fact that they need to get a snowball effect working in their favor, but because at the start of the round, if you actually notice the economy that was on the side of Gecko, it was starting to look rather dodgy. A couple of players were absolutely broke or simply sitting on a 50, and that technically meant that if Metashock would have walked away with round number 21, this, what we're seeing right here, wouldn't have actually left Gecko in a prime position either, but now that they've been able to actually take Nimmel out of commission over by main, well, they certainly are 3 rounds away from taking that 2-0 dub that we were talking about. Metashock, they gotta dig deep. They need yet another miracle on their side.
Absolutely, and now pressure inbound. Roman with the first of many. A second lined up towards main. The AK's pushing 1 by 1, and well, it's unfortunate. It most certainly isn't working out as Roman ripping heads. This is a triple kill for him and Rod against 5. And I mean, you've got to feel bad for the Metashock side. This isn't the way they want to go out. Rod has got to do an unthinkable round ahead of him. Better than a 1 versus 4. Better than a 1 versus 3. He needs all 5 kills, and he will find nothing. Rapsy to find it. Gecko now against 2 from victory. It's Metashock. They are basically down and out for the count. This is going to be the do or die buy. They're going to bring forward everything they can into this round. If they can't find it, Gecko for certain have found 16.
That was really, really unfortunate for Rod. That was the second time in a row that he found himself in a clutch or kiss scenario, and for the second time in a row, it was all smooches for him. But once again, Metashock, they're pulling out all the stops this time around. As you can see, they've got a rather underwhelming buy to work with, and when you're losing heads that easily at the hands of Skopolos and simply barging your way in through smoke, you know it's starting to get dicey. Whips out the sidearm, but can't find anything to show for it. He cleans up Hypnoxis, and he pulls out the pistol, but he can't clean him up. But the response, they're starting to flood on through. Gecko, they're able to shut down Metashock before they even get themselves riled up, and that was the last scrap of hope that Metashock could have hoped to muster. Gecko, they're the first to hit match point.
Not only match point, series point, and of course all the benefits from winning this one. The ego on the line, and well, that's going to be the most important factor. But Metashock, they shouldn't give up. With that bomb plant in the previous, it has allowed for them to buy an AKs, to bring forward a very decent buy, and to try and swing in an incredible scenario. If they can find this, it'd be unthinkable. But Gecko's just momentum and the I like to call it the monopoly effect, where you know, where you have too much land, you can't get out of it. And well, it's gonna happen once more. Roman finds the first, and a second could be found as well. It's on the cusp of victory as a grenade sent deep. Rod is going to avoid the majority of the blast. He's set back only by 9. And well, all in all, it's unfortunate.
It really is. On the side of Gecko, one thing that we have to point out is the fact that they have finally started employing that double ops setup, and they want to solidify this victory as soon as possible. When you've got those kinds of aggressive plays to work with, you're bound to just be left with those 2 remaining players. It's down to Lamori, who's good for the first, shuts down one of the ops inside of Ivy, but now they've got yet again just another steep mountain to climb ahead of themselves. All odds are stacked against Metashock right now, and this is do or die. They're going to need to tag team up and see if they can take the fight directly towards Gecko. Trade potential is no longer existent anymore, and there's already a player CT deep in enemy lines, and he's waiting to pounce for the right moment. And Krause, soon to be joined by Lamori. This is their last shot at keeping the dream alive.
Skapelos to spot the one towards upper. He does not see the drop, but a Molotov appropriate denies a lot of information. A grenade over the top as well, but the bomb is going to be set down. A fire out of the barrel of the AWP to try and find the first. Can't deliver all too much. Krause gonna get tagged up. Lumori with the first. Rapsy pressuring on through. Finds the first. Krause against 3. It's all said and done, or at least it should be. A double swing. A chance for Krause. Oh, misses. Spray misses. It's a wild round.
Oh, no.
And it's all over to the hands of the CZ. Gecko 16. Metashock 8. And a 2-0 victory on Train and Inferno. They find themselves victorious, and that will be that. 2-0, we find ourselves 2 doors. Very well played. And as you check the stats there, I mean, a convincing game from Roman. Individual performance, Scott Pelos as well. But oh my word, was that a good one. As we come back to the cams, though, I mean, what a way to summarize this game all in all. 2 doors, you couldn't have asked for a better way to end that matchup. Convincing, to say the least. And I mean, yeah, incredible stuff.
I mean, obviously, I would have wanted to see it go all the way to Mirage. I love myself a decider map, but when you've got to compete against the team like Gecko, for example, a team of that stature, you might not ever actually have the luxury of forcing yourself all the way to that decider map. And I've got to say that despite the fact that Metashock did give it a run for their money, especially in that opening half of Train, that was the kind of Counter-Strike that I wanted to see. Absolutely ruthless start to Metashock's CT side, but unfortunately enough, they couldn't follow through with the momentum. All they were able to actually grasp for themselves in that second half on the T side was nothing but one measly round, and Gecko, they were able to double their opponent's scoreline, 18-6 in favor of Metashock. Gecko, quick 2 maps, and just like that, that concludes the series. But I do believe that we are soon going to welcome back Raiden to help us analyze and digest exactly what we saw in map number 2. Welcome back, Raiden.
Yeah, hi guys. Thank you for the great cast. So that was pretty decisive, as you guys did say. I will say, I think the B hold from Skopulos was actually pretty sick. I think he had a lot of impact on that B side towards the end there, multiple good shots. So I think props has to go towards them. But I think at the end of the day, probably the better team did end up winning. I think Metashock obviously showed some good things, I think, on Train, but the T side is just, it's really probably the hardest side to play in CSGO at this moment, and they just end up, not getting there.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that no matter where Gecko went in that game, they looked convincing. On the T side, it was a very slow start. It was the opposition that managed to get themselves out on top early doors. Out the gate, as you mentioned, 2 doors. Those first 9 rounds, I think it was 7-2 or something ridiculous like that.
6-3.
6-3. There you go. Yeah. So even then, it was such a convincing way to kick off the half. And then they just sort of slowed down. And that's where Gecko just sort of went, you know what? We have a chance in this. They started building up that momentum, heading onto the CT side. They were unstoppable. A disgusting pistol. And then, a narrow 1 versus 3 defeat leaves this at 16-8. Raiden, as you mentioned, it was the deserved team to win. But I think, again, 2 doors, as we talked about in the pregame just before the first map, even when you say a 2-0, it doesn't speak the whole story. And I feel like for Metashock, I mean, it wasn't the best of games, I feel like, for them. I know individually they feel like they could have done a lot better, but especially on the first map, I feel like that was it was a victory for them, a small victory, I feel like, because they managed to at least get some Counter-Strike played, and it was a good level of Counter-Strike when it happened.
Yeah, a scoreline of 2-0, as you already stated, doesn't necessarily tell the whole story, but now that we've actually had the chance to read through it, Inferno was an absolutely cracker of a match, and it was unfortunate that we couldn't actually see the conclusion of it. I'm pretty sure that it ended off in fireworks, especially on the side of Gecko, but Train was an entirely different dynamic, all things considered, and Gecko were just absolutely ruthless. And the fact of the matter is that Metashock, despite the fact that they got off to such a great start, it started to slip through their fingers, and they just couldn't necessarily keep the momentum going, and certainly enough, they couldn't shut down the momentum that Gecko was actually starting to build up, which is probably one of the most important things that I actually do want to highlight. If you're watching this and you're ever actually going to go up against Gecko, you got to make sure that you put out all the stops, take as many gambles, high risk, high reward scenarios, especially that, because the moment that Gecko actually get themselves up and running, it's going to take quite an effort to slow them down.
Yeah, also we have to also talk about the CT side of Train, where you just have like a lot of money, right? So if you don't stop that Train, they're just going to run away with the utility, and it's just going to be extremely tough to get back in as the CT side. As we are talking about this, we do have a winner's interview lined up in just a little bit, so just hang around for that. But yeah, just speaking about the overall series, I think as far as the players are concerned, I think maybe we should have expected a bit more from Krause. I think he's probably the best player on the Bern side, but we didn't really see a lot from him. I think Train was a lot of Roman on the Zurich side, and also some of Rapsi, some of Skopulos. It was very much a team effort, which the same couldn't really be said over on the Bern side. You know, there was a lot of individual struggles, and also just struggled across the board. I think so they needed a bit more from everybody.
Yeah, I feel like that urge was required, that willpower was needed. But again, as you mentioned, Raiden, I feel like it came down to individual performers on the different halves of each map. You know, we saw an Inferno. I feel like it was more of a joint effort for the winning side. Of course, Gecko managing to close that one out quite successfully. And then you look at Train. I mean, you've got to look at Skopelos, as you mentioned. He was an incredible factor on the CT side. Let's not forget Roman as well. An incredible player individually. We saw some fantastic plays. I think he ended top of the leaderboard, in fact, through the second map of Train. And Roman, I mean, individual excellence, I feel like, was the way to summarize Train. But then to say, not mentioning the other three, that doesn't mean they played bad. I'm just saying, it was a real standout performance for them too, that contributed to a lot of success to the winning side.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, guys. So that's going to be it from my side. We do have a winners interview lined up with Roman, who was, as you just mentioned him, was the primary operator on the train on the train map, and he had 26 frags, I think. So huge amount of impact in a pretty short game. It was not a 30-round game, so 26 kills is pretty steep. So you guys are going to have a nice conversation with him, and it's going to be it from my side. It's been a privilege getting to analyze and desk host with you guys. Thank you for the great cast, and
thanks for joining us.
Have a great weekend, guys.
Thank you, Raiden. Thank you very much, my friend.
Bye-bye.
And so we say goodbye to Raiden for the last time on Stream 2 Doors. As he said, though, we have got an interview lined up, I do believe, with Roman, as he mentioned, top fragger on Train. I'm very excited to jump into this one with him because I feel like this is a scenario where, we get to talk to the biggest impact on Train. I'm excited to see sort of how he went through this whole series, thinking about it all as all in all, an individual excellence from him, I feel like. And so heading into this interview, I'm quite stoked to hear his words on it, and hopefully he'll be joining us in just a second here.
Yeah, definitely so. There's obviously like hundreds of things that I could actually ask him, and if we did actually have the privilege from upper management, we could turn this into an entire podcast, but alas, we'll have to keep things short and sweet as they are meant to be. And obviously on the side of Roman, absolutely stellar performance. He was certainly carrying the vast majority of the weight, and I think it wasn't necessarily just the numbers that he was actually able to put up more often than not, but the real impact that he had throughout the vast majority of these rounds playing on the role of the operator was the fact that he was able to actually get the entry frag more often than not. And the moment that you get yourself that first kill, that does statistically boost your odds of winning the round overall. That was the role that Roman was able to fulfill more often than not, and that is to a certain extent why Gecko were able to solidify their dub.
And speaking of the main man himself, the solo contributor to the top frag of Train the Machine himself, Roman, is joining us here for an interview. Welcome, my friend, to the stream. An interesting game, as we were talking about, a highlight reel for you, I feel like, during that game. Can I get your thoughts after that best of 3 series? What was your thoughts heading into it? Did you expect anything out of the ordinary?
No, I don't think so. I think they had some players who didn't play for a while, and so I think I can expect it to win. But
fair enough.
Yeah.
The one question that I actually do have, and this is more not necessarily. I don't necessarily want to go ahead and talk about Inferno just yet. I want to keep things over at Train for the time being. But obviously, when things started off on Inferno, let's actually touch on Inferno just a tad bit. It was a really, really decisive performance from you guys in Metashock. They were always fighting an uphill battle. They were always on the back foot. They were always trying to close the gap between themselves and you guys in terms of round count, but they were unable to do so. And then here comes Train. They've had a bit of time to clear their heads, a bit of time to, turn over a new leaf, and they came out of the gates, firing on all cylinders, picking up God knows how many rounds it was, completely unanswered and completely uncontested. And the moment that they sat at a scoreline, I think it was 6-2 before you guys were able to finally get the ball rolling. What was going on in the TeamSpeak and the Discord server? What did you guys have to do to put an end to Metashock's momentum at the start of that first half on Train, and how were you guys able to finally start getting some rounds in for yourself?
I don't think we did anything special. We just kept being positive. We knew we could try to out aim them whenever we can, and there's like certain. So 3 of us play in a team together, and there's like certain executes certain setups we can employ. That helped a lot, I think, to give us a comeback on T-side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fair enough. And obviously on CT side, it's safe to say it was a bit of a steamroll. I think it was an unstoppable wreck from you guys. And a couple of rounds I wanted to highlight, even when you were the man down, when you possibly overextended, sort of like what was going through in your minds? Did you expect to come out knowing you won that round? Like, what was your approach to the CT side of Train more than anything? You mentioned they aren't exactly the 3-man core that you were. It was a less structured approach that they took to this game. Did you expect them to play it like that puggy style on the T side of Train, or did you expect more of a systematic approach?
I expected them to play more like Inferno, where they sort of did try to execute and did try to fake and stuff. But to be honest, T-side Train is really hard to play if you don't have sort of a setup. So I think we just let them come at us, and went from there. That's the easiest way to play that side, in my opinion.
Okay. Excuse me. The one question that I actually did have, and this is sort of if we were to sort of like turn back time to the very, very start of the series, the one question that I actually did have was about the map veto, and this is something that myself and Retro were flirting with and trying to figure out exactly why Gecko did decide to pick Inferno as that first map, because obviously we know in the grand scheme of things inside of Counter-Strike, it is usually known as the decider map, where the actual map where good teams to go to actually die on. So what was the thought process behind actually forcing out Inferno at the very, very start of the series?
I think if I remember correctly, Metashock picked Inferno first.
Yeah, Metashock did pick Inferno.
Oh, it was listed wrong. Okay, never mind.
Yeah,
and that actually does that actually can alter my question ever so slightly. Obviously, seeing teams win each other's map picks in any kind of first-person shooter esport, it's a bit of a rarity to see, and certainly it did catch us by surprise. Did you guys expect to walk away with that victory on Inferno, or do you think that Metashock could have put up a bit better of a fight, all things considered?
I think they played the best they could. Like Nimble was dropping like almost 30 first map, and I don't think we knew they were going to pick Inferno, because we know these guys. We play with them or against them a lot, so we knew their favorite map's Inferno, so we knew they were going to pick that. So we could kind of play around that, I guess. And it's we lost the pistol round, and then we went on a tear, and from there on I think we knew we could win this even if we lost like 4 rounds at the end of CT side.
Fair enough. All right, Roman, I've got one more question for you. Is there anything you wanna say to the people watching the stream, or anything you wanna plug, a social or anything?
No, just thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting us if you support us, or thanks for supporting anyone here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Roman. Words from the man himself. Train done, a 2-0 series by Roman himself, and I mean a very interesting performance and a dominant one at that. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Roman, for joining us here on the stream.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you,
my friend. All right, Two Doors. That is going to be that for the interview. I'm excited to see where this uni team will go, where they sort of progress as a team in general. But that's what we've got time for today, Two Doors. That is that for the exhibition match.
Indeed, it is. That basically concludes everything that we have got to show you guys this evening for the University Clash. So, before we actually do sign off, Retro, do you quickly have any closing thoughts before we do have to sign off?
No. What a game. What a day. I think that's as easy as could be. Make sure to follow Swiss Esports on the Twitch channel. And, of course, you can stay up to date on all these awesome events that happen. Tudors, thank you ever so much for joining me, my friend. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you everyone at home watching the stream. Thank you to all the people in the back end that help admin produce. Everyone, we love them all greatly. They make our life look very easy. We're here to talk. They do all the hard work, I think. And that's the easiest way of explaining it. But that's what we've got time for today. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you all back on the stream soon. Have a good night, everyone, and enjoy your weekend.
Take care.
Drop on back, and now Metashock full force swing on forward towards this
Church, and he may have just had a bit of a scare, but he's hungry for even more frags. He finds and they haven't spotted out Skoplos,
and that is going to be a near impossible task. Time ticking away,
and the moment that Metashock can actually confirm live intel that they can just work their way into the long side.
Yeah, they need to be careful. An AK in the hands of Rapsy, and the he's uneasy. Did hear the step of Nibble drop, but he hasn't caught him on the cross. He will find him. Oh, Nibble drop the first, and it's a quad kill within a round. Looking for the ace. MK approaching towards CT.
Well, salvage 2 rifles all to themselves. You would have thought that they had Gecko, they have the opportunity to buy Hypnoxus, unfortunately.
Now green to play the double stack inbound. MK good for 1, good for 2. If he finds the third, it's round one. Attack towards long, and that's bought themselves a 2 versus 2. But Roman counts just 1 versus 2. 2 kills within a round as he finds the first, but traded out. My word, what has just happened towards Banana? They're all standing in the mollies. A quick double knows that they're in, but they aren't going to check the angle, and another kill should be found.
Might have a round on her hands.
And right away, Rapsy good for 1. Free hold away from them as Roman finds another. And wide to throw the fire, or the smoke, excuse me, is now on Scopelos. Back of the swing. New box. Scopelos looking for a peek, an advantage. Oh my, that's a very nice nice trade. Roman finds the shot. The peek on out. Cruci back at the site. Cruci back at the swing.
The impact that is needed. He finds the first, but he'll be shut down as the wide swing comes on for the time being. Now Gecko on the T side, not wasting a single precious moment. Shuts down the presence over by Banana. Now he's looking to contest. Not
found nearly, but the dink is good enough. Hit out quick trade. Hit out the second. There's 50 seconds to go.
Flash is perfect. Nimmel's up. They have yet to spot out the player inside a pit, and here comes Skopolos. Not necessarily to set that off and actually put it to use themselves, but I'm not exactly sure if that's an option they're willing to work with. Nades good, but relatively dicey as they have turned their attention towards the Schlapp.
I mean, this is round for certain gone, but he gets absolutely only 3 away from victory.
They are, and there goes Metashock.
It's into the corner. Needs to be careful. He can be caught out. Lumori pulls out his pistol at the wrong time. Will find 1, however. A second kill required at least there.
Towards these last 2 players who are basically within hugging distance of each other.
Swap Rapsy and MK back and forth. Another shot found. Swapping a decoy on forward. Krause pushing on up. Stuck on the ladder. Jumps on forward.
Well, these last 2 players, Rapsy and AK, they might just be as good as dead. And indeed, they has indeed been spot on out. And he's caught with a molly, but he's able to actually Pleasant on his side. The clock, it's going to hit your unders. This and Nimble to fighting their way out of this 2v4. Then Krause, that does mean that the tip or the scales have been to stick the plan. The audio is going to give it away, and he's caught with his knife.
It's now 3 players out towards A, and this is where it could get from bad to worse. The Gecko's trading effective to the max. Another kill found. Hypnoxus to edge on out of first. Should be a second. Oh, missed. But hold on. Taps a bomb. Peaks the life, and there you go. Hypnoxus trades. He's been straight in towards Connector. A very nice one from him. A second granted and gifted.
Plant and Metashock, they might not be able to contest it, despite all the fancy flanks.
The pistol round victory. Rapsy to find the first. Spray from Halil is wild, but damage push has been done. Lumori low HP. Still good for 1 on the back of the site. A second in with a trade as well. A 3 versus 3. And MK low HP. Mon on in. Do they know that Roman's up close? Rod's taking some serious damage. Needs to find a kill. Will he find it? Yes!
Center between these 2 squads is going to leave Metashock in a 2v4 situation. Not only that, we can also see that MK is now starting to push up towards Ivy. And
the ladder on Roman as it's 2 kills for nothing. A 4 versus 2 post plant. The flanks inbound for